following is a live presentation of CBC Sports. This is the Cup. And today, these two teams will compete for supremacy and the right to be called number one. Stand by for a really big game.
Hey, don't talk to me about budget cuts. We're trying to hype a game here. These are the two top teams in the league. Doug's a magician, a master of sleight of hand and foot. When the pinball dances, the defense is paid. Paul's the daredevil, not afraid to play without a net. Garcia's no showboat. He'll be happy just to get the job done. Allen's high-wire act is hard to follow. AJ and the D are in the groove. They've really got their act together. And remember, the first rule of football, buy first and get the best seat. It's a grade A day in Southern Ontario. There's a panoramic view of Skydome, where today we present an enormous contest, the Stampeders versus the Argonauts. And what do you think? Are we selling it? Actually, when you think about it, this game sells itself. It's first in the East versus first in the West. Welcome now to Skydome and to the CFL on CBC. I'm Scotto. The Argos and the Stampeders are the class of the Canadian Football League, and now each is about to find out how good it really is. For a couple of months, this game has been shaping up as the one in which both Toronto and Calgary will be measured. And it's chock full of subplots, not the least of which is the matchup of the quarterbacks. The Argos' Doug Flutie, expensive but worth it, versus his successor in Calgary, Jeff Garcia, a bargain basement contract quarterback, but he's got 9 wins to his credit. And by the way, in the pregame warm-up, Garcia went to great lengths to dispel the notion that he does not like Doug Flutie. Here are James Curry and Chris Cuthbert. James, you have to think this is a date that both teams, coaches in particular, circled on their calendars a long time ago.
Well, you really do, and when you look at this game, you got two of the best coaches all time in CFL history, and you have two teams that possibly were looking past the last week's opponents coming into this matchup, and both were upset coming into this weekend's game. But these are two coaches that demand excellence from their players. It's going to be like a chess match this afternoon, and so expect the best from both teams, and one of these coaches are going to walk away disappointed and have to explain why his team is on a slide.
Chris, who would have thought that both the Argos and Stamps had come into this game off losses last week, but does that not just prove that they were looking past last week's opponents to this game?
I think so. You keep hearing this Grey Cup preview talk. This is a terrific matchup. James has talked about the coaches, the quarterbacks, great defenses, and it could be won by the specialty teams. I think that's how both coaches feel, whichever team gets the short field today. So these men will be important. Marvin Coleman has been dynamite, had a punt return for a touchdown against Toronto last year, been making big plays all season long, like the #1 punt returner in the league. Jimmy the Jet Cunningham for Toronto. He already has a punt return touchdown, and there's a subplot to that subplot because Cunningham's the deep threat for Toronto. Coleman is the best defensive back for Calgary, and from time to time today, they'll be matched up against each other.
Can't keep track of the subplots. It's the 9-3 Stampeders versus the 10-2 Argos, and on the big scoreboard, we're already up to about 6, and the telecast is only 2 minutes old. On the BF Goodrich TA halftime report today, with a third of the season to go, how does the CFL stand? We'll seek perspective from two passionate but objective followers of the league, Al Mackey of the Calgary Herald and Jim Hunt of the Toronto Sun. The roof is open at Skydome today, but even so, the weather should not be a factor, not with these conditions. 28,000 is a sellout at Skydome for football now, with the 500 level seats closed. Argos hoping for a capacity crowd. Whatever, it should be the largest for a CFL game in this building in years, which makes perfect sense given the matchup. Now here are Chris and James.
Thank you, Scott. There is Wally Buono, who says that there are certain games you play and certain games you look forward to, and this is certainly in the latter category for Buono, looking for his 90th regular season victory. Don Matthews has won 133 as a CFL head coach, and this one would be sweet for him, as he calls this a measuring stick for his team this season. That's Mike Vanderjagt with the football on the tee. The Argos will kick it off, and if the game matches the day and the hype, it's going to be a beauty. This is Terry Vaughn from his own 20. Vaughn, an outstanding season for Calgary as a receiver and returner, gets it to the 35, and Michael O'Shea, one of the newcomers to the Argo lineup, was the first man to meet him. There's Jeff Garcia, number 2 in most offensive quarterbacking categories to Doug Flutie this season, but coming off his worst start as a pro last week. He was pulled at halftime against Montreal.
Well, that was a game where Montreal got off early. They had a couple of big plays defensively, and that's what Calgary cannot afford this afternoon. They have to be consistent and patient.
Jeff Garcia, 17-4 as the Calgary starting quarterback, and right away, the pitch to the left side. And Kelvin Anderson, that's something that Calgary has not done successfully the past couple of weeks, is run the football. Here's the offense that Anderson's running behind. Coverton, of course, the big tuna, will be matched up against an old teammate, Tim Cofield, this afternoon. And Alan Pitts is playing despite a broken finger on his right hand. Pitts and Sapunjas, of course, have been great for years in Calgary, but Terry Vaughn has been their most reliable receiver so far this year. Second down, Garcia looking over the middle. There's Pitts, and he can't bring it in with the left hand. Again, that's not the injured hand, but Pitts unable to make the one-handed grab.
But that's what you talk about, the difference between pain and injury, and that's what you have with Alan Pitts. You have an injury, you're going to have some discomfort in that finger, but you have to go out in a game of this magnitude and play.
So a 2 and out for the Calgary Stampeders. Third down and 4, and Tony Martino comes into the game. Third in the league in punting.
And I tell you, with the sun coming in with the roof open, this will be a big disadvantage for Toronto because Cunningham is going to be looking up into a glaring sunshine, and so look for him to kick it towards the boundary.
And Tony told us that he, in fact, kicking into the wind from that side of the field. You're right on James, and he does. Kick it away from Cunningham. Doesn't want to let the Jet take off this early in the game.
The greatest thing about that is that you're playing for field position, and you don't want to give someone a short field to work with.
Here's Doug Flutie getting set to play against his old team and some old friends.
Control the football, don't turn it over, and don't make mistakes. They're going to make their share of plays. I mean, they're good. They're going to come after you occasionally. They're going to run some blitzes, play zone behind it, and try to confuse you. And we've just got to be patient.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Doug says usually you prepare to play against systems and numbers on the film, but this week he says, I know all these guys. First down, and Flutie is going to pull it down and carry it over the 32-yard line. That's a gain of 8. Anthony McClanahan, the man to hit Flutie. There's Doug's numbers on the season, number 1 in the CFL. And coming off his lowest output of the year in BC, just 199 yards against the Lions. First time he's been under 200 all season long. Second and 2. And the give straight up the middle, and not much there as Big Daddy Marvin Pope closed the hole.
So you go back and you look at Doug's numbers last week, only 199 yards passing. That BC Lions team is a much improved football team, but as we talked about in the opening, the Argonauts could have been looking forward to the Calgary team here this week. This is a defense that's accustomed to looking at Doug Flutie. They faced him for 4 years in practice on a daily basis. He's not that accustomed to playing against this defense, though, because when this particular personnel would be on the field, they would generally be running a scout team for another team that they were playing in that upcoming week. So the scheme that he's looking at is quite different from a scheme he would practice against.
It's 3rd and inches, and the Argos will go for it from their own 33-yard line. Robert Drummond, the lone back behind Flutie, who keeps himself and should have it. A good push behind Mike Kiselak, the center.
Well, you got Chris Giaskis and Chuck Bradley, and there are also some big horses up front protecting Doug Flutie.
It's been a solid offensive line this season. Chris Giaskis has been improving each week at right guard. Vic Stevenson playing game number 225 of his career today. Robert Drummond, the offensive numbers have slipped a bit of late, but Drummond's going to pick that up in a hurry with a catch, and he's driven out of bounds at the Argo bench. But a first down for Drummond.
Well, if you're Marvin Coleman's stature, you got to understand you cannot take Robert Drummond on chest high. You have to come in low on the big guy because he'll just bow you over.
Well, this defense only bolstered by former Argonaut Rodney Harding, who may have been the Calgary's best defensive player the last 6 weeks. Anthony McClanahan wins the nod for the closest resemblance to Dennis Rodman, and there's Mr. Coleman in the secondary.
Well, they've changed up the secondary already. Calgary has gone to a 7 DB package, only 2 down linemen, Harding and Johnson.
First and 10, and they give it to Drummond on the ground, left side, big hole. Alondra Johnson with the tackle, but a big run by Robert Drummond, whose numbers have slipped in recent weeks after a terrific start. Actually, the same story as Kelvin Anderson. These are the numbers for the 2 running backs in the game first 6 weeks, and you can see their lack of productivity in the second half of the season so far.
Well, what you have is 2 running backs who are not accustomed to carrying the load. Both of these backs were not primary backs last season, so they can be getting a little tired as the season wears on.
First down, play action, Flutie. Plenty of time, picked off. Daryl Hall with the interception. So Doug Flutie is intercepted in the first series of the game, and Hall has his 3rd interception of the season.
Daryl Hall might have made the interception, but Anthony McClanahan caused the interception. Calgary came with the blitz, put the pressure on Flutie, and he gave up the football.
Twice an All-Canadian, Daryl Hall has the first big play of the afternoon. Daryl Hall had 3 outstanding years with Calgary, then 3 years in the NFL. He's back and has been a presence since his return.
Well, what Calgary has done defensively is that they've gone to the 7 defensive back scheme, and what that creates is a zone scheme up front, so that the offensive linemen really can't get a true check. And you saw McClanahan come free, because when you're trying to zone block up front and pass off men, you can let one get away, and we saw that with McClanahan.
That's just the 12th interception thrown by Flutie on the season. First down, Jeff Garcia looks in the flat and finds Alan Pitts. And Pitts close to a first down and the midfield stripe. And you know, Doug is anxious to make an impression today. He was really keyed up before the game.
Well, this is one of those type of games, as a player, it really shouldn't take much to get up for. When you have the 2 top records matched up in the league playing each other, that should speak for itself. But coming in, a little extra incentive, former teammates, having a point to prove that you still are the most dominant player in the entire league.
Garcia saying that the pressure he feels here is that his team has lost 2 in a row, and took a great deal of the blame for last week on his shoulders. Although you talk to other Stampeders, and they really noted it when they came out to play Montreal last week. The emotion wasn't there, and that's not unusual when Calgary has come off back-to-back games with the Edmonton Eskimos.
Well, that's a war of Alberta, and when those 2 teams play, neither team has much left the following week after that hit matchup.
It's a first down for Calgary. Out of the shotgun, Garcia going back to Pitts, and he has another first down. So Garcia hooking up with Pitts a couple of times early, and Allen has 52 catches on the year as they work against that great front 4. Tim Cofield is a guy that Don Matthews would like to see even more production out of. 8 sacks on the season. Don Wilson, a great veteran in the linebacking core. Reggie Gibbons has had a big year. George Namako has played a solid job at safety in place of Dan Murphy, who should be back for the next Argo game at that position. The first down for Calgary, and the pitch is to Kelvin Anderson, and he's across the 40-yard line, and a pickup close to 5 for the Calgary running back.
Something that I've seen already in this game from Jeff Garcia that I haven't seen over the past couple of weeks is that he's being very patient. He is not trying to force the issue. He doesn't feel that the game is all his to win by himself. You have to work it in a team concept, and that's what he's done. He's gone to Pitts, his sure-handed receiver, and now he has Anderson, his running back involved in the game, and that will slow down Toronto's pass rush. That's
exactly what he said yesterday. Let's get back to basics. And so far, the Stampeders have looked crisp on offense in this opening quarter. There's Garcia coming across to Terry Vaughn at the 28. Vaughn is stopped by Donald Smith. Vaughn with his 51st catch of the year, and that's close to another first down.
Well, you know, everyone said, you know, Jeff was trying to fill Doug Flutie's shoes, and those are shoes that are impossible to fill. Jeff Garcia is his own quarterback. This is his team now in Calgary. Players have accepted him. You see his stats now on the year, but Jeff Garcia now is at a point where he has to step up and become the complete leader in Calgary.
So those numbers have diminished in the last 4 games. And Garcia on a roll. throwing along the sidelines to Travis Moore, no catch. And it'll be 2nd and 10. Real balanced attack, though. Garcia has already hit Vaughn and Pitts, who have over 50 catches on the year. Sapunjas leading the way with 55. So Donald Smith and the Toronto secondary have their hands full.
And Dave Sapunjas has really come on over the past 4 weeks, but Toronto has a very solid secondary. This is a group that was put together at the start of the year by Don Matthews. Even George Namaco, who is playing at free safety, a converted running back when he first entered the CFL.
2nd and 10 from the Argo 33. Flag goes down, rush on from Don Wilson, and the ball falls incomplete. Argos turned up the heat. Let's see if they jump. Yes, they did.
That's exactly what they did. They came with a delayed wheel blitz with Don Wilson. He was the weak side linebacker in the wheel position. You're going to see him come off the corner.
Toronto 92. 2nd down repeated.
It's Rob Waldrop, one of the defensive tackles, who's had an outstanding year, and he's called offside.
Been very impressive in the middle of that scheme, along with Andrew Stewart, come over from BC last season. Waldrop has really added some help to Tim Cofield leverage-wise as far as running against the run game.
So it's 2nd and 5 after the penalty, and the ball at the 28. Garcia has time, looking for Pitts near the end zone, and he can't hang
A
on.
marvelous effort by Alan Pitts. Just get a shot of his hand right there. He has a splint on his ring finger, but he's looking back into a glaring sunshine. But excellent coverage that time by the Argonauts in the back end. Ed Berry, a longtime CFL veteran. Man to man, Alan Pitts couldn't get any separation, but a nicely thrown ball by Jeff Garcia, very catchable. He could not come up with it.
And a little extra jolt by Ed Berry to make sure the catch wasn't made. So Garcia just misses on the 2nd possession for Calgary, and Mark McLaughlin, who has been Mr. Automatic this year, nails another one from inside the 30 now. He is 30 of 31 on the season.
Back at Skydome, sole possession of 2nd on the line in Winnipeg last night. The Eskimos put on a clinic for the Bombers. Don Blair, the Heck Creighton Trophy winner, with a big run back, 85 yards for the touchdown to give the Eskimos a 27-9 lead en route to a 41-12 win. By the way, Chris, Shannon Baker of the Bombers knocked unconscious late in the game by Trent Brown, taken off in an ambulance, suffered a concussion, but he's at Bomber practice this afternoon, so he's okay.
That is good news. There was concern last night at the conclusion of that game. Here's the kickoff coming to Jimmy Cunningham, and the Jet hits the 36-yard line. And among the tacklers, Ray Biggs, Frank Russell, 17-yard return for Jimmy Cunningham.
Biggs leads Calgary in special teams tackle, and that's a very critical point. You spoke about it in the opening of this game. Field position based on special team performance.
An equipment adjustment a few minutes ago at the bench. Alan Pitts, just a little warm down there. Last day of summer, took off the t-shirt and strapped it back up again.
Hope you put on some sunblock.
Here's the fake to Drummond as Flutie rolls to his left. Out to Clemens, and in the neighborhood was Alondra Johnson. Wally Buono felt Johnson was outstanding last week and should have been the defensive player of the week. And AJ's been playing like that all season long.
He has. He's a very outstanding linebacker. Had 2 interceptions last week for the first time in his career in one game. Had an outstanding performance. The team came up on the short end of the score, but it was not by lack of effort by Alondra Johnson.
Pinball's 78th catch of the season for 6 yards. Look at the points they've been able to score early in the game. Flutie's Argos get the ball in the 2nd possession. They've been very productive, and they're going to get a chance here. 2nd carry today for Flutie. Greg Knox, the safety, hitting Doug, but that usually means he's had first down yardage already.
The scheme with Toronto is that they run a veer scheme with Doug, and it gives him a dual option. They have the shovel pass that he can come underneath, or he can pull it himself and tuck it. He saw the opening. Once he got the kick out by Vic Stevens at tackle, he knew he had a seam and he could pick up the first down.
Flutie now 3 rushes, 20 yards in the game. Drummond left side. Look at Daryl Hall step up to the line and nail Drummond.
Daryl Hall has become a full-fledged CFL linebacker. He matured when he went down south, added some extra bulk, and now he's been able to move up into that will linebacker position and play it very solidly.
In a lot of ways, he was the first DB ever to really move up and play linebacker in the CFL in 1990-91, and it seems like every team has followed suit, but few are as good at the position as Daryl Hall. 2nd and 9, flag down, looked like Calgary jumped, and there's a completion to Paul Mazzotti, who's back in the lineup for the 2nd week after missing 2 with a sprained ankle.
Well, you had Jackie Kellogg coming on a halfback blitz, got in that neutral zone, but Paul Mazzotti did an excellent job of running his route, went down and ran that deep end
Offside.
route.
Calgary number 3. Penalties decline. First down.
He ran the deep end route, and Doug Flutie had a clear throwing lane. His offensive line is doing a marvelous job right now protecting the quarterback.
So the Argos are on the move. The penalty declined. And Mazzotti has his first catch of the game. Ball at the Calgary 39. And Flutie will take it himself again. A big hole coming across is Knox. Coleman got a hand on him to force him out of bounds. A little misdirection, and Doug Flutie is beating the Calgary defense with his running in this first quarter.
Well, that was an excellent change of direction by Doug Flutie, and what they got was a misdirection going right, and right here is going to be the key. You're going to get a down block, and that's what's going to seal the play. He comes down, he gets the seal block, allowing Doug to get outside, and Doug, once he's in the open field, is a very tough runner to bring down.
That's a pickup of 22 for Flutie, who's number 6 in the CFL in rushing. And a first down, Toronto. Flutie quickly gets it to Clemens, who cuts it inside and is nailed again by Johnson. Ball popped loose. Calgary thought they had it, but the early indications are that it is Toronto football.
Well, we're looking at vintage Doug Flutie right now, the mix of the run and the pass with him as that extra running back in the backfield. That's what allowed them to move Mike Clemens up into the slot position, because he was equally as dangerous with the ball under his arm as he was throwing the football, Doug Flutie.
Doug Flutie calls Pinball Clemens his Dave Sapunjas now, and now 79 catches on the year for number 31. 2nd and 3, Toronto. Big Robert Drummond. McClanahan grabbed him from behind. Drummond falling forward, close to a first down. And this will likely require a measurement.
Well, when you look at this offensive line for Toronto right now, with Calgary only playing 2 down linemen, Will Johnson and Rodney Harding, they're at a big disadvantage, Calgary is, because these guys, Mike Kislak, Chuck Bradley, Chris Piaskas, Chris Perez, Vic Stevens, are controlling the line of scrimmage at this point.
Well, the battle is on now along the line. 3rd and 1. Drummond. No, great fake by Flutie, and he is close to the first down. They converge on him near the stick, but the Argos feel they've got it.
Well, it's going to be very important where the spot is. I think he might have came up the nose of the ball short just from where he landed, but the spot always changes. But an excellent play fake, nevertheless, by Doug Flutie with the naked boot rolling left.
You got me.
Yeah, that's hard to do, too. You do hockey.
Well, they are short. Stampeders have come up with another big defensive play. They had an interception early, and now they've turned it over on down. So the Argos with 2 turnovers in this first quarter with 3:12 to play, and Calgary fans waving the colors of a 3-0 lead.
Make them throw the out. In other words, you got a collision, but Mazzotti came in behind, right?
Frank Spaziani, defensive coordinator.
Well, he came up with a marvelous scheme on this play. Watch the play fake by Flutie, but watch Marvin Coleman come in and close, and Greg Knox fields from his free safety position. That's what your free safety is supposed to do. Come up and field when the play has been turned back inside. That's good coaching technique.
Argos had made 24 turnovers coming into the game, 2 a game. They've made 2 in the opening 12 minutes. Here's Garcia. He'll pull it down, and Jeff Garcia run out of bounds by Benson. close to a first down and a little breathing room for the Calgary offense.
Well, see, that's one of the things that Jeff Garcia has to do is run with patience. That time he saw the opening and he took advantage of it. He rolled to find himself some extra time. Argos were in a man coverage. That means all the defensive backs had their back turned to him. He saw the seam and exploited it.
Mentioned that Doug Flutie was 6th in the league in rushing, and just a couple of spots behind is Jeff Garcia, 8th spot in the league, 65 rushes, 450 yards coming in. And he pulled it down a couple of times today, and Dave
Calgary called a
Sapunjas
timeout.
had to run over to get the timeout called as the 20-second clock was running out.
That's a heads-up call by Sapunjas to recognize that Calgary could not afford to lose the field position because that's what you're playing for at this point.
Ron Meyer had come in, a backup offensive lineman, was a late substitution, and there was some confusion. That's Markel Fleetwood warming up at the Toronto bench. Don't know if anything's happened to Flutie.
Well, Doug might have took a little nick on that last boot. If you recall, 3 Calgary defenders, McClanahan, Knox, and Coleman, all got a shot on him, so this could be a precautionary measure with Fleetwood warming up.
Flutie bent over on the Argos sidelines, and on 2nd and a yard, the Stampeders go straight ahead.
Well, it's very important right now for Calgary to be able to pick up 2 to 3 first downs in succession as we get a shot at Doug Flutie. Seems to be okay walking on the sideline there. And Markel Fleetwood still warming up, but Calgary at this point needs to move the ball out of the deep end of the field. They need to get up around midfield if they're going to have to give the ball back to the Argonauts.
First down at the 20. Calgary with the number 2 passing offense in the league, number 5 running the football, and that's Anderson straight up the middle to the 28, and he has 8 on that first down carry. 9 rushing touchdowns on the season for Kelvin Anderson, whose best game was against Hamilton, 132 yards.
Well, as a defensive lineman, you have to stay at home against a power running scheme as Calgary came with on that last play. And both defensive tackles took wide bursts on their rush and opened up a big seam for Anderson to pick up 9 to 8 yards on that run.
Coming into the game, Anderson, his last 25 carries, only 35 yards. So the well went dry for a while for the Calgary rushing game, and they're trying to reestablish it here. And Anderson stood up as he hit the 30, will have the first down. Reggie Givens, along with Ken Benson, met Anderson, but Calgary moves the sticks with another key first down late in this first quarter.
You talk about that well going dry, but also the offensive linemen have to sustain the blocks. They can just not make contact and slide off. They have to be able to hold on to that block, as you'll see right here, as you see Ford coming up, sustaining the block on Coalfield, pushing him back a couple yards, allowing Anderson to pick up the first down.
And Stampeder offensive line took a little heat this week after giving up 5 sacks against Montreal. Back on the ground to the right side, and Anderson 3 or 4 more. Reggie Givens, who's had an outstanding year at middle linebacker for the Toronto Argonauts, was in on the tackle. Asked Don Matthews yesterday if Mike O'Shea is close to being ready for a starting job, and his response was there's no guarantee he will start.
Well, you know, you look at this Argonaut linebacking core of Wilson, Givens, and Benson, and there's really no weakness there. So for Mike O'Shea to start, there's going to have to be an injury.
2nd and 7, Stampeders. They look for Dave Sapunjas for the first time today. The catch at the 41. That's close to the first down. Courtney Griffin providing the defense. And Sapunjas, who is number 2 in catches in the CFL, makes his 56th grab of the year.
And what Dave Sapunjas does so well is that he works back towards his quarterback. And of the last 4 games, the coaching staff spoke about that he's getting open now, that he's working harder in his routes. And it was evident on that last pass route that he got the cushion, allowing the completion.
It is a first down at the Calgary 42. There's that hitch screen out to Terry Vaughn. Vaughn following Kelvin Anderson, did a nice job of providing some time for Vaughn to burst down the sidelines.
You know, I really like what Terry Vaughn does. Came up with a stat for him. RAC, R-A-C, run after the catch. and it was evident on that last reception.
Big Calgary defense in the first quarter at Skydome. In the first quarter, Calgary comes up with an interception, stuffs the Toronto offense down near the goal line, and Mark McLaughlin with a 35-yard field goal. Dave Sapunjas might be Doug Flutie's best friend among the Stampeders, but he's anxious for his team to win without Flutie.
Well, I'd love to come out and have a big day, and I think the whole squad would, and Jeff Garcia in particular. I think that this club is still making a point that we're a great team without Flutie, and the receivers are great receivers without Flutie, so we want to go out there and make that point.
That comes down to coaching and preparation. What Dave Sapunjas is talking about, it means you still have the same work ethic, even without Doug Flutie.
Second quarter underway. Garcia with some heat on, throws it high, and that ball's picked off. Adrian Smith has the interception. And that's the biggest play for the Argos so far this afternoon in this defensive battle. Dave Sapunjas was the intended target, but Adrian Smith has his 4th pick of the year.
It comes down to the action at the line of scrimmage. Calgary was not able to get the rush down out of Garcia's face. He had to force the throw, threw it early, and threw it right into Adrian Smith. You'll see as he rolls out, Reggie Gibbon gets up off of a non-block and makes a play right in front of him, and Smith comes up with the interception.
We had seen Fleetwood warming up at the bench, but it is Flutie back in, going to work. Flag goes down as the pass is dropped, trying to hit Robert Drummond coming out of the backfield, and it's a holding call against Toronto. Adrian Smith had the interception for a touchdown Labor Day against Hamilton.
Chris Perez had a handful of Will Johnson.
Holding, Toronto number 62. First down repeated.
And Will Johnson is a handful.
Well, he is, one of the all-time top sackers in the CFL here in the 90s. And Chris Perez, one of those off-season acquisitions by the Argonauts, doing a fine job at left tackle, but he was caught on that last play.
Well, defense has dictated the statistics so far.
Well, we get a look at what occurred in the first quarter, and you'll see the rushing yards, an improvement by both clubs, but the 2 turnovers by the Argonauts have really stymied their offense.
Ball back at the Argo 51. It's 1st and 20 after the holding call. Here comes the rush. Marvin Pope and Will Johnson bearing in on Flutie, who throws the football away.
Will Johnson trying to run down Doug Flutie, which is no easy task for anyone.
5-time All-Canadian Will Johnson with 98 career sacks, and would love to hit the century mark this afternoon.
Well, you think about it, Will Johnson and Tim Cofield both at one time in the early 90s anchored the 2 end positions for the Calgary Stampeders, and Cofield had to move along, and you look, they both lead their team in sacks. A great matchup, and it's going to be a great battle to watch those 2 all day.
2nd and 20. And Flutie cuts it over the middle, has Paul Mazzotti at the Calgary 42-yard line. It's a pickup of 18, but they're a couple of shy of the first down.
Paul Mazzotti saw his first action in 2 weeks last week versus BC, had a 42 consecutive game streak of receptions, broke right before Labor Day, but a long, deep crossing route. People have always talked about the lack of arm strength of Doug Flutie, but Doug has no problem getting the ball in that deep third of the field to Paul Mazzotti.
Mazzotti, one of his favorite memories was a game last year against Calgary, 244 yards receiving back on October 27th last year. It's actually 3rd and 3, so Mike Vanderjagt is into the game. His longest field goal of the year, 51 yards.
And he's kicking into a swirling wind also, Chris, so that's a problem in the closed end of the stadium.
This from 49 yards out. High snap, fielded well by Flutie, and it had the distance but missed to the right. And Marvin Coleman will concede the single point. 49-yard single. Argos on the board, but they trail the visiting Stampeders.
It's the Stamps 3-1 here, nicely into the second quarter. There's Grey Cup history between these two teams. In '71 in Vancouver, you'll remember Leon McQuay's fumble that allowed the Stamps to win at 14-11. 20 years later, they met again in the championship game in Winnipeg. The Rocket ran back one for a touchdown, nicely avoided the flying beer can. Key points in a 36-21 Argo win. That was '91. Chris, question is, will they meet in the Grey Cup in '96?
That'd be the best bet right now, but I think the Calgary Stampeders can hear that team from Northern Alberta breathing down their neck after another big win yesterday. Here's Alan Pitts getting up and being taken down again at the Toronto 42, but Garcia to Pitts has been a productive combination so far today.
You can always tell the difference in the Calgary offense when you have two healthy slots in Pitts and Sapunjas, and this time they're trying to match up man-to-man with Simmons on Pitts, and he gives him a great fake inside, and he's wide open. But it all starts with the offensive line. Jamie Crysdale, the center, is the architect of the offensive blocking scheme because he has to make all the play calls, and you see him doing a fine job up front.
There's Mike O'Shea making a defensive play on Kelvin Anderson.
You see Crysdale and Stewart. Stewart, the nose guard for the Argonauts. These two players were teammates at the University of Cincinnati for one season, and now they're matching a head-to-head battle this afternoon at Skydome.
Just a gain of 1 for Anderson on that last carry.
And I wouldn't want to take both of them to dinner at the same time either.
Crysdale 289, Stewart 265. And Garcia going to the wide side of the field. As Travis Moore broke the first tackle, and the Calgary offense is moving as Moore has a first down catch.
Chris, we spoke about the offensive line taking a lot of heat for Toronto over the week in the media, but they're doing an excellent job today, Calgary's offensive line, of providing the time for Garcia. As you see him being able to step up in the pocket, and when your quarterback can do that, he can generally find an open receiver.
Well, it's unusual. They went into last week's game with 13 sacks allowed, and 5 in one game is very unusual for the Calgary Stampeders, who are second best in the CFL at protecting their quarterback. First down, Anderson on the counter play, got across the 20, and was stopped there, picked up 3 or 4. Mike O'Shea is in at the outside linebacking position, makes another tackle.
So what happened there with Anderson, he was a little slow of getting out of the blocks. He has to hit the hole a little quicker than what he's doing. He's hesitating once he gets the ball. He has to believe that the block is going to be there. Watch the hesitation with Anderson. Once he gets there, the hole is there. He's just slow arriving and allowing the Argonauts to close.
2nd and 7, Calgary. 6 receivers. Here comes the rush. Alan Pitts can't pull it in, as Garcia hurried the throw.
Don Wilson, once again, every time you turn around and you do an Argonaut game, you have to mention Don Wilson. Seems to never get old, constantly make plays. You'll see him coming off the corner unblocked, forcing Garcia to deliver the ball earlier than what he wanted to do and forcing it to go wide.
That'll bring Mark McLaughlin back in as Garcia sits down. Got Calgary in the field goal range, and McLaughlin will attempt this from 26 yards out. What an extraordinary year. He's now 39 of 41 from inside the 50. And he's got another one. Mark McLaughlin has 2 field goals this afternoon. And the Calgary Stampeders have a 5-point lead at Skydome. Beautiful afternoon at Skydome. Calgary with the lead. There's Pinball Clemens getting set to go back on offense. Here are his keys for today's game.
First of all, you have to take care of their pressure up front. They have a great front four and also Alondra Johnson and those guys coming behind them. So you have to take care of their front four and then get off quick, short stuff to get them a little disciplined. Then when they come up, you're going to have to make a big play or two because they don't break.
That front four has been tough to get to so far. Here's Clemens, who will try it on the kickoff return. And the pinball always exciting over the 40, giving the Argos pretty good field position after the 30-yard return. He's tackled by Eddie Davis.
And what he spoke about in that clip, taking the little stuff underneath, and that's what Doug Flutie has been doing. But Calgary has been able to come up and stop them in short, Calgary has been able to come up and stop them in short yardage situations. And That's where he's talking about the defense
Offside.
not bending.
Calgary number 28. Penalties decline. First down.
Calgary offside on the kickoff attempt. Beryl Duclair was a little anxious, but the Argos like their field position, and they'll stay with it at the 41.
Well, you see Doug Flutie's yards and the projection for this season. He'll pass Condredge Hallway, the Argonauts' all-time single-season passing leader.
9:50 to go, first half. Flutie, lots of time, and he hits pinball coming out of the backfield. Every time 31 touches the ball, 51 in red and white is in the neighborhood.
I tell you, Alondra Johnson is such a great reaction linebacker that he recognizes so much in front of him. But what they do with pinball, and that's the Argonauts, is that they drag him all the way across the route. They do a lot of crossing patterns trying to get the linebackers to pick themselves, but Alondra Johnson, very heady and made the play.
AJ, an 8-year veteran, and for the last 5 years in Calgary, he's led the Stampeders in tackles. A couple of interceptions last week against Montreal. 2nd and 5. Flutie has to look the other way, and he'll take off with it. And he turned it upfield, cutting by Alondra Johnson. Finally, McClanahan with the tackle, but Flutie has a first down near midfield.
And what Calgary is not doing right now is that they're not coming with a consistent full-out pass rush. They're trying to rush under control, but you have to get after Doug Flutie because they're allowing seams and not rushing on an even plane. Watches the linemen leave their feet, and that's where the problems start for Calgary because Flutie took advantage of it and runs for the first down.
Is that too much respect for Doug?
Too much.
First down. Flutie guns it over the middle, incomplete. He was looking for Tyrone Williams, a former Stampeder, and the fans thought the flag was coming, but not the case.
Well, Eddie Davis in the coverage that time for the Stampeders, and Eddie Davis was a player early in the season that made a lot of big plays for Calgary in the secondary. He hasn't made those plays of late, but you can see him right there making a reaction on the football.
First time Flutie's looked for Tyrone Williams today. 2nd and 10 from the 55. Quickly over to Jimmy Cunningham, who climbed high to get it, and Marvin Coleman made him pay the price.
That's where you don't want to try to earn your living, working on Marvin Coleman. Probably the best one-on-one cover man in the CFL. Cavis Reed will have something to say about that in Edmonton, but Marvin Coleman is second to none as far as man-to-man coverage on the corner. You'll see Doug Flutie puts the ball out there. Cunningham has to go high, but watch the closing by Marvin Coleman with a great form tackle.
It's a tough catch to make when you're 5'7", and you know Coleman's waiting to drill you. It was just a 5-yard pickup, so 3rd down, and Vanderjagt is in. Coleman has dropped back, not a long kick. Vanderjagt across his 20. Ball popped loose. The play had been whistled down. 32-yard punt by the Argos. Not only two of the best CFL coaches in league history, but two great defensive masterminds, and you're seeing the effects of that on the field this afternoon.
Well, Matthews architected those great defenses in Edmonton in the 70s and 80s, and also moved over to BC, and Wally Bono from us all-star linebacker in Montreal, and a great defensive scheme that he's established here in Calgary.
You know, I kind of thought we were going to see a no yards flag thrown on that last punt return.
Well, it was very close in that umbrella. It looked like Toronto may have penetrated, but may have backpedaled out. We'll get a good look right here, and he was only 3.5 yards out of the way of Coleman on the play, so it should have been a flag, but it was one missed by the officials. But great eyes. It's like sitting up in a hockey nest, isn't it?
I've missed one today.
You're allowed that.
Here's Calgary, first down. There's Anderson over the middle at the 30-yard line, has 7, and Michael O'Shea has been active in this second quarter.
You know, you think about the instincts of Michael O'Shea. He's not in a starting role now with the Argonauts. He's coming off the bench. but his reactionary skills are still there. They're still sharp. Cat quick, able to close on the ball once it's in the air to Anderson. Michael O'Shea is going to be a big plus down the road for this Argonaut organization. And it's also his 26th birthday, along with Vic Stevens, the offensive tackle, number 65, who turns 36 today also.
2nd and 3. And Garcia. A battle there going on between Travis Moore and Adrian Smith. And Moore has the football in a first down.
I can understand the officials missing the no yards, but I don't understand them not getting the interference call right there. They're battling going down the field, but you're not allowed to hold on to the receiver. But great concentration by Travis Moore to come up with the reception. Garcia gets the ball out and allows him time to adjust when the ball is in the air, and a great reception at the 52.
Well, Garcia has such great weapons. 5 receivers in the top 28 in CFL receiving. He's 8 for 13, 110 yards so far this afternoon, and Kelvin Anderson springs that one into Argo territory. Marcelo Simmons had to move up from the secondary with the stop. That's a big pickup by Anderson to move the sticks.
And when your offensive line is getting off the ball and your running back can run through the scheme of things, you'll see right here as Ford comes up and gets an excellent block on Givings, the Argos leading tackler, and he's off into the secondary. And when your defensive backs have to make tackles on running back, the defensive linemen are not doing their job up front.
At the Argo 47, nice protection for Garcia, looking for Pitts. And overthrew the receiver. George Namaco and Adrian Smith were combined on the coverage.
Sometimes you lick your chops a little too much when you're playing quarterback, and you can see Garcia put some heat on that one, and it just took off. But an excellent opportunity to gamble and try to come up with something big. Garcia is getting the protection from his running backs, Ford and Anderson, and that's what you have to do. They've had a lot of heat the past 2 weeks, but the backs are getting the job done.
Better protection, and Garcia was criticized for having happy feet last week. He's hung in there better today, but goes down for the first time. There's a sack for Rob Waldrop, number 7 on the season.
The former Outland Trophy winner out of the University of Arizona, the 2nd Outland Trophy winner to play here with the Argonauts. But Waldrop has really helped solidify that defensive front. You'll see him at the bottom of your screen, just a power move coming inside and able to come up and make the stop on Garcia.
Jeff wishes he had happy feet that time.
He had a happy bum when it hit the ground. Waldrop over there refueling, getting a little liquid taken in. Nice warm day here in Ontario.
So Tony Martino back into punt on 3rd and 19. And the jet is back for Toronto. This one will bounce out of bounds. So Cunningham hasn't had a chance to take flight tonight. 39 yards on the punt.
But most important, it's a net of 39 yards, Chris. He did not get a chance to return it. And when you can gain 39, 40 yards of field position on every punt, your kicker is doing his job.
Well, somebody told me before the game that this might be like a heavyweight title fight, that it might take a few rounds for these two teams to really get untracked, and that's been the case here. Defense has dominated so far.
Well, both offensive lines have done a decent job, but the defensive lines have won the battle thus far and not allowed the offense to get fully untracked.
Speaking of heavyweights, Mike Kislak in at 290 pounds, and Flutie airing it out to Tyrone Williams, and he was in another real battle there with Eddie Davis. And for the 2nd time today, Williams is the target, and the fans think pass interference should have been the call.
Well, you spoke about a heavyweight boxing match, and that's what it's coming like. The officials are letting him play. They're not throwing the flags, and that's good to see. We see Kislak and Rodney Harding, who is having a wonderful year this year with the Calgary Stampeders, and Kislak is one of the more dominant centers in the CFL right now. He came over from San Antonio. You'll see him getting the job done right there.
The Argo coaching staff feels that Kislak is the best offensive lineman in the CFL right now. 2nd and 10. Moody steps up, guns at Cunningham, and again, boy, the timing by Marvin Coleman, but this time Cunningham had enough for the first down as those two have a little something going.
Marvin Coleman was in that in-between zone. Do I go after the interception or do I make the tackle? And so he went after the tackle because if he had gone and tried to get the interception, he may have taken that one back for 6.
That's exactly what Doug Flutie talked about yesterday. With Coleman, he'll play it straight 90% of the time, but it's the 10% he gambles where he can be the most effective.
And that one was right there if he had chose to gamble.
1st and 10. And Flutie changing the call at the line. Over the middle, flag down, and that pass nearly intercepted. In and out of the hands of Eddie Davis. Pinball Clemens was the intended receiver. And again, a flag. This is going against Toronto.
That holding penalty.
Illegal block to the head. Toronto number 64. Down repeated.
It's another category the Argos lead in. Least penalized team. Well disciplined. At that time, Chuck Bradley called. 3:02 to go, first half here at Skydome, where the defenses are ruling so far. Welcome back to Skydome. Beautiful Saturday afternoon. Battle of the Titans. Calgary 9-3, Toronto 10-2. Stampeders trying to avoid a 3-game losing streak, which would be their first since 1990. And the Argos are anxious to avoid back-to-back losses for the first time this season.
Well, they came off the longest winning streak in club history, 10 games, and looked flat all of last week at BC Place, and this week they really haven't got off offensively yet.
First down. Second down, 25 to go. A little option toss to Drummond. Jackie Kellogg is there, and he stripped the ball from Drummond, and Calgary has it. Play whistle down, but it is Stampeder football.
Eddie Davis came up with the recovery, but great pursuit angle by Jackie Kellogg on the play to contain Robert Drummond because it's no easy task in open field. Made him come back in, held the ball too loosely, and swatted it away.
That's the third big defensive play by the Stampeders defense today, and now Don Matthews' team on the ropes in this first half.
This is becoming a game of opportunities, and you'll watch right here with the speed option. Doug gets it out to Drummond. He has an opportunity to get square, but watch Kellogg. Great pursuit angle and the alertness to slap the ball away, and Eddie Davis right on the spot with the recovery at the 15.
A thought on Drummond in a moment, but right now Calgary goes to work. First down, Garcia. Sapunjas drilled, rolled off, touchdown. What a great play by Toronto native Dave Sapunjas.
The Western Ontario product, Dave Sapunjas, who's really gotten his game back on track the last 4 games coming into today's contest. On a deep slant route, Jeff Garcia with an open lane. The pass rush came outside, he stepped up and drilled his open receiver for the touchdown.
5th touchdown of the year for Sapunjas, and the Stampeder fans celebrate that. And suddenly, Don Matthews' team is in a big hole here in the first half. Lachlan adds the extra point. First touchdown of the game comes after the 3rd turnover by the Argos, and it's 13-1 Calgary.
And that's the mark of a good team, is that you can capitalize on defensive turnovers and great field position. And that time, Griffin was chasing Sapunjas across the field, and Dave, a former running back, knew how to handle the tackler, Namako, once he came up. He lowered the shoulder, took him down, and rolled off into the end zone for 6.
2-time outstanding Canadian. 3 times 1,000-yard receiver, and Garcia down to congratulate Sapunjas after his 17th touchdown pass of 96.
It's so sweet in this type of offense for the receivers to have an opportunity to run around and get your routes, and especially when the offensive line is doing its job. This offense is very effective.
Well, while Calgary celebrates, just a thought on Robert Drummond, who fumbled that football. Our spotter, Art Darch, after the first series, saw Drummond go to the bench and get some attention. And he wondered at the time if Drummond hadn't had his bell rung, and Drummond just has not been running the football with the confidence we're used to in this first half. Clemens up near the 40-yard line, taken down by Ray Biggs, who James has mentioned is always one of the leaders on special teams for Calgary.
Well, you think about Ray Biggs, on a lot of teams in the CFL, he could possibly be a player. You'll see Mike O'Shea in a scrap on the sideline, but Ray Biggs, in this Calgary scheme of things, has to play a role, and his role is to be a special teams leader, and he's one of the best in the CFL.
Well, there's Drummond, who has fumbled once and has looked tentative at times in this first half.
Well, if you think about that first run that he had when he ran over Coleman, and he hasn't been the same since.
Well, the heat on Doug Flutie a bit now, late stages, first half. As he guns it over the middle, that's Dwayne Dimitrition to the Argo 50-yard line, and that should be a first down for Toronto. 2:14 to go, first half. Flutie anxious to get some offensive points on the board.
The last game we did here at Skydome, Dimitrition had 118 yards on 7 receptions, had a career day against Saskatchewan, and that's his first reception of the afternoon on that slant, and he picks up a first down.
Alan Ford was going through his records and found where the Saskatchewan Roughriders had given him a scholarship at one point, and Dimitrition said thank you by helping beat the Riders with a pair of touchdowns. That's Pinball Clemens in the flat. Another first down, and Flutie with back-to-back completions has the Argos on the move.
What's so impressive about that is that Doug Flutie threw that ball to the field, and he threw it on a rope out to Pinball Clemens. They ran a clear-out route. They ran off the defensive secondary playing a zone. Clemens sat down underneath it and was able to pick up a first down.
Clemens, number 1 in pass receptions on the season, number 2 in all-purpose yards. And the Argos have the football on Calgary's 45. Drummond releases late, pressure on, and Flutie ducked away from one, throws off the back foot and threw that one away.
When you look at the Calgary pass rush, though, they're coming up short of Doug Flutie. They're not committing themselves fully, and that's allowing him those escape lanes. And when you're playing Doug Flutie, you have to get as deep as he is on the contain, not allowing him to escape.
Flutie 2nd and 10 and 1:25 on the clock. Guns it over the middle, and that's complete. Paul Massotti with the catch. And it's a first down, Toronto inside the 30.
And when you gamble with the blitz, Doug Flutie will make you pay. Calgary came with 6 up front, meaning man-to-man coverage in the back end. Flutie recognized it early, got Massotti on the deep end route. First down, Argonauts.
49th catch of the year for Massotti, who's over 700 yards. Looked like the Argos were going to go no huddle, and then Flutie changed his mind and called them in with the clock running and exactly 1 minute to go in the first half. Flutie will keep it himself and finds the seam. Doug Flutie inside the 15, and he was just tripped up as his thoughts were to get to the end zone.
What they're utilizing is a lot of misdirection right now. He brought Tyrone Williams back under the scheme, faked the shuttle pass to him, and booted back out to the right. You'll get a great look right here as the flow of the defense is going with Williams. He takes it against the grain and picks up a first down to the 14.
Saving tackle by Greg Knox. Flutie has rushed the ball 7 times for 64 yards. First down, Toronto at the 14. Flutie down the sidelines, and there's Massotti with the catch. And out of bounds to stop the clock at the 6 with 26 seconds to go.
What is happening for Toronto is that the offensive tackles are keeping the defensive ends off of Doug Flutie. They're not allowing that upfield penetration, allowing him those escape lanes to the outside, and he has a clear sight path to his receivers.
In 2 of the 3 losses for Wally Bono's team this year, they've let it get away in the final minute of a game, one against Winnipeg, the other against Edmonton. in the late stages of this first half that they've been falling back a little too much?
That's the thing. You have to keep the consistent pressure on up front.
2nd and 2. Flutie again looked like some confusion in the backfield, and Anthony McClanahan was there to make sure Flutie didn't go anywhere.
I don't know if it was confusion or it's just Flutie trying to take advantage of the over pursuit by Calgary, because he reverse pivoted out of this. Watch, you'll see him reverse pivot, and he tries to come up through the seam, but the thing is McClanahan got the penetration, and that's what you have to do up front, is come across the line of scrimmage to stop Doug Flutie.
There's Frank Spaziani in charge of Calgary's defense, and they've forced the Argos into a field goal situation now with 21 seconds to go. It's 3rd and 2 from the 4-yard line.
But keep your eyes out for a fake. This is one of those situations where you'll get the offensive lineman to go down in the shift, trying to draw him in the neutral zone.
Well, this is a 12-yard attempt unless Flutie takes the ball and goes with it himself. Argos will take the sure points.
And Flutie had something called, because the same pound his hand in his fist into the ground on that play. He just couldn't get the defense to react.
So the Argos' best drive of the game nets 3 in what's been a frustrating first half for Doug Flutie against his former mates.
Well, this is a situation where you really don't want to gamble, and you want to play it close to the best, and both teams have done that offensively.
Well, coming up at halftime, Scott Oak will chat with Al Mackey of the Calgary Herald, Jim Shaky Hunt of the Toronto Sun about the CFL and last week's upset weekend. We'll also have highlights of the first half, and Mr. Curry will enjoy showing you some big defensive plays, I'm sure.
Hey, that's what this game is all about, a little hitting, a little nastiness, and we've seen a lot of that here in the first half.
Well, in this matchup of potential champions, they say defense wins championships, and we've seen great defense this afternoon, and in particular Calgary with the 3 turnovers, and that has led to this 13-4 advantage at the half.
Well, it's been an outstanding game by both coaches to get their teams prepared after those lows that they came off of last week, and to be able to come out and play this type of defensive game, because both teams gave up a lot of points, but neither team has been able to get anything on the other one's defense thus far.
Let's join Scott Oak.
All right, Chris, as we head to halftime, Argos head coach Don Matthews joins us now from his bench. Don, it's not often your team's held to 4 points in the first half of any ball game. How do you explain it?
It's a tough defensive battle on both sides. That one mistake that we made, giving the ball up deep in our own end, really hurt us. But, you know, it's a tough defensive struggle. Both teams are playing very well on defense, making it very tough.
I take it you're not surprised with how defense has ruled the first half? Don, I take it you're not surprised that defense has ruled the first half?
Well, you know what? I'm always looking for more offense, especially from Doug Flutie and our offensive people. But, you know, we have to give full credit to Calgary. They're playing a heck of a game.
All right, Don, I'll let you go. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Good
you.
luck in the second half. So the Stamps lead by 9. Stand by now for the BF Goodrich TA halftime report. That's next from Skydome in Toronto.
Welcome to the BF Goodrich TA halftime. Now, here's your host, Scott Oak.
Through 30 minutes here at Skydome, the Stamps lead by 9 in a game that's living up to the hype if you're a connoisseur of defense. Welcome now to the BF Goodrich TA halftime report. CFL season's into its final third with no shortage of topics for discussion, and that's even if you want to discuss football, which we do. Week 12 seemed to suggest that the final month and a half of the schedule could be interesting. First place Stampeders were beaten by Montreal to start a trend that saw 4 upsets in 4 games last weekend. None bigger than BC's victory over the Argos in Vancouver. The Argos, then 10-1, were simply outplayed, and the Lions' win kept their playoff hopes alive. The Hamilton Tiger Cats were on an extended losing streak, but the Cats' defense reared up and helped them beat the Eskimos. Hamilton needed this win in the worst way. And at Taylor Field, Ottawa, just as desperate for a win, got it over Saskatchewan in the final 2 minutes. David Archer to Bobby Gordon for the winning points as Ottawa won its second in a row. The Eastern Riders' streak of luck continued. All of this we present as evidence that a few teams given up for dead could yet factor into the playoff race. And to discuss that and other CFL issues, we're joined by Jim Shaky Hunt of the Toronto Sun here in Toronto, and from Calgary, Al Mackey of the Calgary Herald joins us. Shaky, to you first of all, what about what happened in Week 12? Does that tell us that the product on the field is still just fine?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that the CFL, what they play, their games are great. The problem is if they could just escape from all this nonsense. So people, what are they talking about? They're not talking about some great games. You know, all those great upsets last week. Ottawa go into Regina, win their first game outside of Ontario since about 5 years. You know, the BC Lions knock off the Argonauts, only the second loss of the season for the Argos. And Hamilton beat Edmonton. I mean, and they were very entertaining football. But what can we do about it? How do we stop people talking about other things?
Al Mackey, would you agree that what happens on the field is the least of the Canadian Football League's problems?
Oh, absolutely. If you remember at the start of the year, Scott, we were talking about how the expansion draft of getting all the American teams that had folded, get those players into the league was going to create this great sense of parity, and that everybody's talent, especially at the import position, was going to be upgraded. That's happened, and we're seeing it. I mean, if you can, on some weeks now, you can throw away the records. It doesn't matter if they're 3-9 or 9-3. The game is so good. I mean, I saw Montreal come into Calgary last week, and there's no doubt that this is a team with Mike Pringle back and Alfred Payton. This is a team that can challenge Toronto in the East. So you have to like that. If you can just stay away from the problems, and this seems to be the ongoing saga for the CFL, stay away from the financial problems, concentrate on the field, you're in great shape.
Well, I want to keep this discussion to football, but I do want you both to comment on the CFL's horrid sense of timing. Here we were heading into the biggest game of this season, Calgary and Toronto today. The most widely reported story in the papers and on all media, in fact, during the week was Jim Spiros' comment that the commissioner of the CFL has given him permission to negotiate a deal with the National Football League to make the CFL a minor league farm system for the NFL. The impracticality of that deal aside, Shaky, what do you think of the propensity of those running this league to constantly shoot themselves in the foot?
Well, I tell you what, if I'm Larry Smith, the first thing I'm going to do, get adhesive tape, put it over Spiros' mouth, and put it on with glue so he can't get it off. I mean, if he was stupid enough to go to this ridiculous meeting with the NFL, at least he should have had the good sense to keep his mouth shut, not say anything about it. If I were Spiros, I would have been ashamed that I'd even considered this. But if I'd done it, I sure as hell wouldn't tell anybody about it.
All right, Al Mackey, we've been calling this the Grey Cup preview, but the Eskimos won in Winnipeg last night. Should the Calgary Stampeders be more concerned about holding off the Eskimos than appearing in a Grey Cup contest right now?
Well, I think they always have to be aware of the Eskimos. That's the one team that has been able to come up through defensive play, special teams play, and take it to the Stampeders. Now, I'm not sure about this game because I think I see some things yet in Toronto that they've been able to use, take advantage of Calgary's speed on defense, and use it against the Stamps. The Stamps have not really played a great, complete game since Hamilton, and we're talking about a month ago. So this is a club that needs to show it can win. If you're talking about that propensity for stupidity again in the league, you can't legislate against that. The only thing you can do, aside from taping up Jim Spiros' mouth, is to legislate, put gag orders on these guys. That's not going to happen. We're also hearing, Scott, that the 3 community-owned clubs in the league are ready to take a stand that they're fed up with basically subsidizing the privately owned teams like Montreal and BC who go out and sign better players, and again, the competitive balance gets shifted.
Shaky, we've got Ottawa and Hamilton tomorrow on our telecast in the CFL on CBC. Some people wanted the plug pulled altogether on the Rough Riders a couple of weeks ago, but here they are on a 2-game win streak. Has what's happened in the nation's capital vindicated the governor's decision to let Ottawa continue?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think it would have been a disaster if they let Ottawa fold. The point is the people in Ottawa seem to really care about keeping the Rough Riders. They had to go to the wall before they got the wake-up call. What worries me is Vancouver. The people out there, I don't think they could care less about the Lions, and that's what really has to disturb the CFL. I mean, they can't afford to let the Lions fold, but unless they find a sugar daddy, I don't know what they're going to do about it.
All right, Shaky Hunt here in Toronto, Al Mackey in Calgary. I thank you both for your time. We'll have to leave it at that. And so the Stampeders leading here at halftime. The BF Goodrich TA halftime report will continue in just a moment. At Skydome, this much-anticipated game between the two best teams in all the land has the Stamps leading at halftime. The lead coming off this sequence of plays. The Argos turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. This one very costly. Robert Drummond stripped of the ball, Eddie Davis recovered, and that to set up a touchdown pass by Jeff Garcia to Western Ontario grad Dave Sapungis, back on form after a slower than usual start to the season. He spun off the tackle and went in for 6, the only major of the first half, and that's a surprise given the offensive talent on both sides. First in the East versus first in the West, and so the winner of this one can claim to be Canada's best. Stamps are 30 minutes away as they lead by 9. That's the BF Goodrich TA halftime report.
Ready for the second half on a magnificent Saturday afternoon at Skydome in Toronto, where Wally Buono's Stampeders have a 9-point lead after 30 minutes of football. It's 13-4. Don Matthews' team has scored just 15 points in the last 6 quarters. This high-powered offense that averages over 32 points a game so far this season.
This is a defense that's very accustomed to looking at Doug Flutie. For 4 years, they had to practice against him every day in Calgary, but he wasn't accustomed to looking at this particular defensive scheme. They've made some changes since his departure, and they've been able to defend him very well for the first 30 minutes.
Mark McLaughlin, who had a pair of field goals in the opening half, kicks it off, and Pinball Clemens sees it scoot by him. Will retrieve it at the 7. Stampeders' solid downfield coverage will pin Clemens inside his own 20. Let's check the numbers through 30 minutes.
Well, you see right there that the Argonauts won the battle on net yards, but the turnovers 3-1. And Jeff Garcia was able to capitalize on that one key fumble by Robert Drummond with the touchdown pass to Sapungis.
Well, the quarterback's a huge focus today. And there are their numbers so far. And Doug Flutie has also rushed the football for 64 yards. There's Drummond first carry, met Will Johnson, spun off him, but that front of Calgary's has been solid so far.
And you had spoken about that you had a conversation with Art Darch about Robert Drummond not being as effective as he had at the start of the game. On that first play that he ran the ball and was slammed out of bounds by Marvin Coleman, he has not been effective since that point, and he's not running with the same intensity.
Drummond coughed up the football deep in Calgary territory. And now Flutie can't find anybody, and again is forced to throw it away. And again, the rush has forced Flutie to hurry a lot so far this afternoon.
Well, they forced him out of the pocket late, but they have to get deep. You see Coach Matthews with some concern, and Flutie and McClanahan getting into it on the sideline. McClanahan is not one of those players who spent a lot of time with Doug Flutie in Calgary. He came in last season late, so the friendship and camaraderie is not there between those two.
Yeah, he was the guy that called Flutie a scrawny midget yesterday.
Well, I guess when you have blonde hair, you can do that, and it's dyed that color.
Yes, he's doing the best Dennis Rodman impersonation on the Stamps. There's a flag down on this punt as Terry Vaughn fields it at his 45 and is quickly nailed and driven back to the 40. And Michael O'Shea, who's been active today, big number 50, down there first again.
Well, it's so key to be able to play every aspect of the CFL game, whether you're a starter on defense or a starter on special teams. And Mike O'Shea has come in and been a contributor.
Calgary 91. Penalties decline. First down.
With the Argonauts, he has performed in every aspect that they've asked him to.
That flag was offside Calgary, and after the booming punt and great coverage downfield, a 46-yard punt by Vanderjagt, the penalty declined. So Jeff Garcia, first time in the second half, will go to work. He rushed the football twice for 13 yards, as well as the 125 yards through the air and 1 touchdown to Dave Sapungis. Garcia's going to try it first time, but the turf monster got him that time, and before he really got on track, he hit the turf.
Well, in changing from that football to baseball surface, they got strips. They have strips here in the Skydome where they take up the baseball infield, and you can see just as he was leaving the darker part of the AstroTurf, he might have caught a seam right there and slipped as he was turning up. But Tim Cofield was right there to make sure that he stayed down on the play.
Got back to the original line of scrimmage. It's 2nd and 10. Stampeders at their own 45. Here comes from the Argos on the blitz. Quickly delivered, but a one-hopper to Vaughn, incomplete. And the Argo defense forces Garcia 2 and out.
And that's been one of the things with Garcia. When he gets hit, the next play he generally becomes impatient. So he has to not worry about the rush, even though he recognized the blitz, and expect that his receivers are going to come open and hang in there for him.
So here's Martino in, third in punting in the CFL. Native of Kelowna, British Columbia, and Cunningham back. And Martino has kicked away from Cunningham so far today.
That's a smart move.
Looks like the Argos have something going at the line as they try to put the heat on Martino. And this time the Jet will get a chance. Spins away from a few and turns it up. Up to the 39, so a 9-yard return after a 35-yard punt by Tony Martino.
And he's always dangerous. Now you can see why Martino has been kicking away from him all day.
Second possession for the Argos in the second half, coming up after this timeout. Welcome back to Skydome. The Stampeders are going to kick again. Argos called for offside, and Martino will get another chance to better the 35-yard punt. Just a net of 26 on that last situation with the 9-yard return by Cunningham. So the Stampeders get a chance to improve field position here. And in this type of game, it's been critical, the field position. Keep the field as long as possible. This time he angles it out, or angles it, but Cunningham will have another chance. And this time, Cunningham will spring free for a bigger return. The gamble didn't pay off, and Jimmy Cunningham may outrun everybody. One man to get him, and Calvin Anderson can't. Touchdown, Jimmy Cunningham. 93 yards for Jimmy Cunningham, and the Argos have their first major score of the day.
We spoke about it in the opening that special teams would be a very important part of the game today, and they kept kicking away from Cunningham, but they didn't get it pinned to the sideline, and they came down out of control, and you have to bracket when you come down on punt coverage, and he took it to the house.
Second punt return touchdown of the year for the Jet. He had a 73-yarder against Saskatchewan earlier this season, and that gives the Skydome faithful a chance to make some noise after a quiet first half.
Well, you need a big play when you're playing for field position. You have to gamble sometimes. Argonauts did a wonderful job of setting up the blocking. Cunningham saw the hole, and he just jetted right through it.
Oh, we saw Don Blair last night. Calgary native score one for Edmonton on a big return. That's Kelvin Anderson, who made the diving attempt to stop Cunningham, shaken up. Also saw the Giz, who's the best guy in the business at returning punts.
In the history of returning punts, had one 2 weeks ago, and Hamilton got called back and was able to get one last night without a flag.
But this guy's not bad.
He is one of the new emerging stars on kick returns in the CFL. Jimmy Cunningham made an impact last year, and we've seen him once again this season.
Vanderjagt, Flutie had trouble with the snap, but they do get it through. And the Argos convert the touchdown, and, well, you wonder about the decision to give Cunningham a second chance to return the kick after the offside. I like Martino's strategy of kicking it out of bounds a little better.
Well, when you have a guy that's this dangerous, you don't want to give him multiples of opportunities. And when you have to run down twice, 40 yards on a full sprint, you'll see as Biggs overruns the play, he didn't break down, and that's what you teach. You have to come down under control, and if you bracket properly, you eliminate a lot of the lanes, and Calgary did not do that, and Cunningham made him pay.
I know it's not a memory that Calgary fans want refreshed, but he looked a little like Chris Wright in last year's Grey Cup game.
Well, Martino was the most fearful guy in the whole stadium when he's like, guys, hey, I pinned him to the sideline. You got to make the play. You can't leave me out here one-on-one with him because I don't stand a chance.
Well, doesn't that change the complexion of this game? Not even 4 minutes into the second half, and it's now 13-11. Calgary with the lead, and now the Argos with their first injection of momentum this afternoon.
Well, this is a gut check time now for Calgary. They've given up the big play on special teams. Now their offense has to respond. Can I get some momentum back into the scheme of things for us? And that's going to be on Jeff Garcia and his offensive line. They have to be patient. They have to give him the time also. He can't afford to gamble here.
You know, I don't think Wally Bono is going to second-guess the decision to re-punt, in that you've got to have faith on your special teams guys to cover downfield.
Well, you have to, but the thing is when you have to come down on that full-speed sprint twice in succession, it takes a lot of your legs away from you. And when you have an explosive player like a Jimmy Cunningham, as we see the medical staff attending to Raposo down on the field, look like he has a hamstring pull or cramp is what they're attending to right there. Doesn't look to be anything serious, but Calgary now has their backs up against the wall. Even though they're leading, the momentum is wearing blue.
John Raposo, a graduate of the University of Toronto, so he knows all about wearing blue, and the long snapper for the Argos.
And that can be a devastating loss if you lose your long snapper. He's a very important part of special teams.
Going to take a timeout after the big punt return touchdown by Jimmy Cunningham. Well, we've heard from Jimmy Cunningham. Marvin Coleman now getting set to accept the kickoff from Mike Vanderjagt.
Well, now this is gut check time for Calgary. Can they respond to Jimmy Cunningham's return? Special teams can take so much out of you now. Here's Calgary's opportunity.
Coleman from his 13. Covered at the 30-yard line. J.P. Escuerdo led the surge along with Cooper Harris, the son of former Calgary great Wayne Harris, coming up later today, the Amoco Cup from Spruce Meadows, just outside Calgary.
You look like a horse, man.
My buddy Scott Russell is. Tomorrow, let's see if the Ottawa Rough Riders can continue their winning ways, and the Ticats hoping to build on last week's upset win over Edmonton. They'll meet at Frank Clair Stadium, and there'll be a huge throng on hand to cheer the Riders in Ottawa. Garcia, his first pass of this series is a completion to Dave Sapunjas with Courtney Griffin hanging on. And this is, I think, a key series, as you mentioned, for Jeff Garcia.
It is. You know, you want to see how Jeff is going to respond now that Toronto has scored, and there's really some pressure now. He had a small lead. It really wasn't a comfortable lead by CFL standards, but can he string together several first downs, because he has a lot of field to work with here.
Up at the 42, first down Stampeders. There's a duel between Terry Vaughn and Adrian Smith. They'll go back to the ground, and Kelvin Anderson broke one tackle, and at the 48 has 6.
Now that's a very solid call on first down when your running back can pick you up 5-6 yards, because it gives you a comfort zone at the quarterback position. You don't have to try to stretch out the defense.
9 carries, 45 yards for Anderson. And so far, the Argos with a slight edge on the ground, and most of that on the feet of Doug Flutie. Second down, a flag down as Garcia overthrew the intended receiver, Dwayne Ford, and it almost ended up in the hands of Ed Barry.
Well, it would have all gone for naught because of a holding penalty. Excellent pass rush that time by the Argonauts to put the pressure on Garcia, and that's what we had said. How would he respond in this series?
So the penalty declined.
And you'll see right here as they're coming right up the middle, you'll see Jay McNeil and Bruce Covington grabbing around the ankles, and that's what was called by the officials.
Rob Waldrop, who's already got to Garcia today, was in to hit Garcia. The fans getting Into it again as Martino drops back, and it's showtime for Jimmy Cunningham again. Cunningham will get another chance. And away he goes. Jimmy Cunningham. He could go. Martino cuts him off and down to the 30. But the Jets flying high now, and he has the Argos not only right back in it, but poised to take the lead. A 41-yard punt, and Cunningham brings it back 60. So he has 153 yards in punt returns in this third quarter alone.
What an exciting player, Jimmy Cunningham. He makes so many things happen. His vision is so great as he's recognizing the blocking as it's forming coming downfield and able to pick up the seams and just explodes once he gets to that crack, and he's in the open field and he's off to the races. Only Martino, by taking a great angle, is able to slow him down in the pursuit of the rest of the Calgary defenders, tracks him down. But great field position for the Argonauts, and once again, that momentum that I spoke about wearing blue.
Well, that's been a big story right now. 200 yards, the advantage for the Argos and specialty teams. I'm not sure Cunningham wouldn't have outrun everybody if he hadn't just run 93 yards for a touchdown. That's Ray Biggs, key man on specialty teams for Calgary, slow to get up. And Noah Cantor is also down. And he's getting attention as Cunningham catches his breath.
The CFL on CBC. Brought to you by B.F. Goodrich. Show them your true colors.
Well, he has become the story of the afternoon in just under 6 minutes of this third quarter.
Don Matthews has always emphasized the importance of special team play on his players. And right here, you can see the hustling of players getting down, making sure, you saw right there in the corner as O'Shea got a key block. That is what's important about special teams. You come down, you get your block, and a great returner will return the favor by picking up positive yardage for you.
Well, he's got 188 yards out of Jimmy Cunningham this afternoon. Chuck McMahon, one of the special teams coaches, looking on as Flutie almost gave up an interception. That one hit the shoulder pads of Al Jordan, who leads the Stamps and picks with 6.
And when you're playing against Doug Flutie, you cannot let opportunities like that get away from you, because so often he'll come back and make you pay. Jordan has to make the catch on the ball. You don't get many opportunities as a corner, but when you got one gift wrap for you, you have to come up with it.
That would have tied him for the CFL lead, along with Glenn Rogers, who got number 7 last night in Edmonton's win over Winnipeg. 2nd and 10, Toronto. Flutie to Clemens, and he's brought down at the 24, and he'll have a gain of 6 and be 4 yards short of a first down. Kenton Leonard tackling Clemens.
Well, what Argonauts do is that they try to keep Clemens in a lot of underneath stuff, and you can see right here where he sets down at 5 and 6 yards, hoping that once he gets the ball with his elusiveness, that he can break a tackle and pick up a first down.
Pinball's made a few catches today, but has been held in check in those yards after catch.
That is a key stat, the RAC, run after catch, and they've been able to eliminate that, and that's the quick pursuit of the Calgary defense.
Here's Vanderjagt attempting one from 31 yards out. Had a little trouble with the snap on the convert, had a little trouble with that as well, and they missed to the right. Well, that ball skipped on Doug Flutie. You wonder if the placement wasn't perfect, but Vanderjagt's upset with himself.
Well, if you recall when John Raposo was down with the leg cramp on the hamstring, now he's the long snapper, and the legs are a very important part with the long snapper because he has to get that little snap as he's bringing the ball back, and you can see the ball skip, and that probably was a problem from the leg problems that he had earlier.
So the Argos squander a terrific chance to take the lead.
You got a perfect look as Flutie had to go down like a shortstop and pull that one up and get the placement, and the timing was thrown off.
Stamps dodge a bullet to maintain the lead by 1. It's 13-12. Garcia to his right to Terry Vaughn, and he's pushed out at the 37. That's just a pickup of 2 as Garcia was scrambling.
Well, Jeff has kind of gone away from the things where he had a lot of success in the first half, and he exploited the middle of the Argonaut defense. And you look at the quarterback numbers, Jeff has the 1 touchdown. Doug is yet to put 1 on the scoreboard. He went last week without throwing a touchdown also. But right here is where Jeff has to earn his paycheck. He has to be able to pick up a couple of first downs in this quarter for his team.
Working against the 3rd stingiest defense in the CFL, 2nd and 7. And Garcia throwing it, delivering low to Vaughn, who couldn't bring it off the turf.
This is one of the things that he has done when he's gotten out of his rhythm, is that he tries to test his arm strength, and he wants to go to the wide side of the field consistently. Over the middle is generally where you're going to find your soft spots in a zone defense. And when you have a Pitts, a Sapugnans, and yet we have not seen Vince Danielson at all today, you have to utilize those key weapons that you have in your arsenal.
Well, Wally Buono has to like what his defense has done, but special teams and the offense have eluded him in this second half, and the Jet must be refueling because Pinball Clements has dropped deep for Toronto. From his 29. And hit by Roger Reinson. And this time, good coverage, 7 yards on the return after a 43-yard Martino punt. Welcome back to Skydome in Toronto. It hasn't been the run and gun game that some might have expected between these 2 explosive teams. Defense has dictated, and specialty teams have started to swing the balance in the second half, although it's Calgary still leading by 1 as Toronto gets set to go on offense.
But see, you're one of those guys who believe in offense only. You know, you would have never got your hands dirty playing this game.
Oh, I knew we were going to hear from the defensive lineman before the day was out. We're going to have to talk about Don Matthews' comments yesterday about the D lineman being the toughest position to play in pro football. Here's Pinball Clements throwing it downfield. Jimmy Cunningham can't catch up with it. Oh, a little razzle-dazzle. And Pinball would like to have that one back.
You talk about imagination in an offense, drawing it up on the sideline. That looked like Doug Flutie playing in the sandlot, drawing it up to pitch back to Pinball. But Cunningham had an opportunity to rest on the sideline after those great punt returns, and he was able to blow by Al Jordan, who sat on the play and didn't stay with his receiver.
I tell you, Pinball's got an arm, doesn't he?
He looked like he might be able to play some baseball.
Like all these other quarterbacks, likes to throw deep.
We'll have you take him out on some skates, sir.
2nd and 10. Over the middle, and Flutie cutting it to Paul Mazzotti once again. And that's the 4th catch of the game for Mazzotti, who's got valuable yardage today. Knox and Coleman combine on the stop. Mazzotti over 700 yards on the season.
When you talk about a quarterback having the time in the pocket, look at the perfectly formed pocket by the Argonaut offensive line, allowing Mazzotti to do that deep in route coming in from the left. Flutie felt no pressure from this Calgary front and had the time to find his wide open receiver.
Paul Mazzotti, 5 catches for 76 yards. A lot of steamboats for Flutie, and over the middle has a completion to the big guy, Tyrone Williams, the former Stampeder, Halifax native. It's his first catch against his old team.
The problem that Calgary is having defensively is that they only have 2 down linemen in the game, and that's Rodney Harding and Will Johnson. Marvin Pope, a converted linebacker, but a bit undersized when you're working against 300-pound offensive linemen.
Nothing undersized about Tyrone Williams, 6'5", 220, a target that Doug Flutie says reminds him of Alan Pitts. Line goes down as that time Marvin Pope went high to knock it away.
you're going to get Chuck Bradley 64 for holding. He just tackled one of the linebackers, I believe it was McClanahan, when he came through. You'll see him right there with the pin right at the right of your screen. But Pope did a good job.
Holding, Toronto number 64. First down, repeated.
Chuck Bradley it is.
Pope did a good job of getting up in Doug Flutie's face and batting that one down. You can see him trying to catch a little wind right there. Marvin came in late. He was down in camp with the 49ers and really hasn't gotten his full legs back under him. It's like hell week when you go to the NFL training camp. It's 2 a days, full contact each practice session, and he just hasn't gotten into full game shape for the CFL yet.
Well, it's different shape, NFL and CFL, and here the running game so much more a part of it. Boy, he's a terrific athlete for that size, 6'1", 255, known as Big Daddy. He was out there. The Stampeders have a new warm-up process this year where the receivers all come out with quarterbacks Garcia and Barrett about 2 hours before the game to run patterns, and Pope was having fun trying to cover those receivers today.
Well, it's a challenge when you have to go out and try to cover this receiving corps, but that just shows the versatility that he has in the athletes on this Calgary defense.
The third quarter has been the best for the Argonauts and the Stampeders this year. In fact, it has been the quarter in most games where these two teams have put opposing clubs away. But this one very much hanging in the balance with 4:12 to go in the third quarter. And that play didn't get off.
Get a time count violation here by the Argonauts.
And it's
offside, Toronto 88, first down repeated.
Oh, they're going to call Mazzotti offside, move it back 5 more. And now the football rests on the Argo 52. It'll be 1st and 25 as Big Daddy catches his breath.
You know, someone we have not seen as of late is Robert Drummond in the offensive scheme for the Argonauts. He's gone by the wayside. This is the perfect spot on the field where you bring him back into the scheme.
He releases, Flutie under the gun, throws it into the flat and has a completion. And that's Tyrone Williams with another catch.
Tyrone looks to be on his way to having a 1,000-yard season. When you look at Tyrone Williams, you got to think about the Western Ontario Mustangs when they had Tyrone Williams at wide receivers, Dave Sapunjas at tailback, Dwayne Ford at fullback. That was a pretty potent offense.
I was kidding Dave Sapunjas yesterday. I didn't think he was that young. Sapunjas just seems to have been in this league so much longer than Williams, but of course Tyrone went south of the border for a number of years. But they were teammates on a Vanier Cup champion team. Here's Flutie looking deep, looking for pinball Clements, and the ball overthrown as Eddie Davis provided coverage against pinball.
Well, that was one of the few times that Calgary has come with the blitz and they were able to get early pressure on Doug Flutie. When you bring both your linebackers up inside along with your free safety knocks, it gives you a great pressure advantage, and that time they forced him to throw it early. You'll see right there as McClanahan shows late, he has to overthrow pinball who had got behind Davis on the play.
And so it's 3rd and 13. Don Matthews' team still not untracked offensively. Flag down. Vanderjagt angling it over Coleman, who lets it bounce into the end zone, and that'll go for a single pending the penalty.
It's in that area where you're going to get offsides. Now will they bring this one back?
It's procedure against Toronto.
You know, with all the movement that you have on special teams with players moving back and forth, how do you call procedure?
Looks like Wally Buono is going to let the point stand.
Illegal procedure, no end. Toronto, penalties declined, single point.
So they'll give up the tying point to get the football at the 35.
Well, in this game of field position, it's so important. You don't want to be starting your offense back at the 10 or 15-yard line. So that's a smart move. We talked about coaching playing a very important role today. and now it's all tied up. Now which coach has the best scheme from here on out.
Kelvin Anderson trying the left side. Just another thought on that, conceding the tying point in the game. But remember that game 2 weeks ago, BC and Montreal, the Lions seemed to be in control, and then Corey Philpott ran one out of the end zone in the late stages of that game. They were backed up, and Montreal ended up getting the better field position and going on to win the game.
Well, you can see right here as we're playing for field position as Ed Berry comes up and levels some punches, but that was a very important decision that you were talking about with Philpott in that Montreal game, and it cost BC Lions in the end.
Here's Garcia looking for Pitts, and boy, there was tight coverage there. Marcelo Simmons was step for step with Pitts. And Garcia hoping that Pitts could outduel Simmons with that big reach of his.
But that comes back to forcing the football. And why do you force the football when your receiver has a defender standing right in his chest and you're putting it on a rope? If you're going to throw it to Pitts, throw it over the top. We're looking at Sapunjas, who is wide open over the middle. You don't want to have to force it.
So Tony Martino comes back. And with under 2 minutes to go in this third quarter, Maybe Cunningham revs up again. 93-yard touchdown, a 60-yard return, and that was almost blocked. Cunningham from his 28, and not much real estate there. A late flag comes down after Cunningham stepped out.
Talking about arm strength, he threw that flag for about 35 yards.
Adrian Smith almost blocked the Martino kick. And it looks like this one's going against the Argonauts.
Illegal block. Toronto number 80, first down.
Norm Casola called. And so the Argos are marched back.
Well, this has been the greatest thing that could happen for Calgary, is that they got the pin back on the penalty. Now their defense has an opportunity to make the stand, because Doug Flutie, they have not been able to contain him here in the second half. Even though he hasn't put a major up on the scoreboard, he's been nickel and diming and gaining field position with his offense.
Still looking for the first offensive touchdown of the day by Flutie and the Argonauts. There's Tyrone Williams, who's been busier in this second half with his third catch, and a flag down in that area of the field as well.
I think we're going to get a pick call here. You don't see them that often in the CFL, but this is one of those that you're going to see.
And the Argos are marching further back.
Well, you had Paul Mazzotti and Tyrone Williams, and Mazzotti came in and picked the defensive back off and allowed Mazzotti to get open, make Williams get open.
Danny Barrett is warming up at the Calgary bench. He came in the second half last week, engineered a comeback that almost.
Forward pass interference, Toronto 86, first down repeated.
Well, they've got Cunningham for forward pass interference, but
too small, even fine.
Don Matthews is agitated with that call. Danny Barrett warming up, came close to the big comeback last week against Montreal, and with just 24 net yards offense for Calgary in this second half, Barrett looks like he's ready to come in. First and 20. And that one skipped incomplete, intended for Drummond. And neither offense is really in gear.
No, neither offense have had any productivity really here. They struggled, and we have another Calgary defender down on the field. Looked like Will Johnson this time, who was down on the turf, but both quarterbacks have struggled. One added plus, when you have a Danny Barrett on the sidelines warming up, you have a lot of experience at your backup position. A former #1 pivot with several teams in the CFL. Jeff Garcia has not had the day yet that he's expected to have. It's not all lost. He can come back and gain some composure and utilize all his weapons, and that will keep Danny Barrett on the bench.
Total yards in the third quarter, Calgary 24, the Argos 49. Jimmy Cunningham's got both beat.
Well, you know, we sit here and we talk about offenses, the lack of productivity, but you have to take your hat off to the defenses for both teams. Chuck Bradley, Bob Vespasiani, and these guys have done a great job with the secondaries for their teams and designed great schemes to combat each other's quarterbacks. And it's seen today in the scoreboard with the lack of productivity in points with only 13 for each team.
It's like they're working on Will Johnson's neck. Let's see if we can pick out what happened.
Look at the top of your screen. You'll see right here as Chuck Bradley gets him in a hog tie. Looked like he might have suffered a burner. Could have been called with a holding penalty there, and the officials make that Chris Perez let him get away with that one. But that's always a dangerous area as an offensive lineman goes up and puts one of those big clubs up around a defensive lineman's neck.
Looks like he hit the clothesline there. That'll be some concern for Frank Spaziani as we go down to the sidelines and join Scotto.
Well, here's Brendan Rogers, the heart of the Argo special teams, who on Labor Day suffered a herniated disc in his neck. He's had the surgery. Boy, a very delicate operation, Brendan, but you say you're not giving up on playing.
Well, not yet. You know, the doctors have told me that if I want to continue my career, I can. It's something I'm going to have to reevaluate during the offseason and go from there. You know, I certainly have the fight in me left to play, but it's something that I'm going to have to decide sometime in the winter.
What about this game? Special teams huge today.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Jimmy he's lethal. You know, it behooves me as to why they put the ball back in his hands. But hey, you know, those are the kind of plays that make or break a game. And heck, we broke this one wide open.
He's got the blinding speed that you wished you had. Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks a lot.
Tell you what, Brendan Rogers, one of the fun guys to watch on special teams. Hope he comes back. Here's Flutie airing out the football, looking deep, and he's got Paul Mazzatti. Foot race, and Mazzatti's going to win it. Oh, what a big one for the Argos, 97 yards.
Gambled on the play, and he gambled in the wrong spot, right in front of head coach Wally Buono, where he set on the route and tried to jump and tip it down. Paul Mazzatti kept running. Doug Flutie put the air under the ball. Perfect pass. 6 points, Argonauts.
Well, Paul Mazzatti was hurt here a month ago. They said he'd be out 4 to 6 weeks. He missed 2 games as the distinction of being a quick healer happened again, and he's certainly healing the Argo offensive woes here. 173 yards receiving in the game. Remember last year I mentioned he had a 244-yarder against Calgary. Paul Mazzatti and the Argonauts have the lead here late in the third quarter. In fact, that was the final play of the third quarter. And Don Matthews' team has broken the tie in dramatic fashion. Flutie to Mazzatti, 97 yards for the go-ahead touchdown. Sixth touchdown of the year for Paul Mazzatti. The Argos have scored 16 straight points and have their first lead to 20-13.
Well, Doug Flutie, there's no question about his arm strength, but he just airs this one out. Paul Mazzatti just keeps running, and he's able to run under it and take it to the house for the Argonauts to give them their first lead of the afternoon at 20-13. But Paul Mazzatti, what a great effort 2 years in a row versus the Calgary Stampeders last year. Well over 200 yards in receiving on an October 27th game and over 170 this afternoon.
Kickoff. Didn't take an Argo bounce, goes out of bounds, and Toronto will have to kick off again. That was a strange scoring drive because they were going in reverse because of penalties.
That's a long way to go with these old legs.
So they have the 97-yard touchdown reception in an 87-yard drive.
Mom, Dad, everybody. Whew, I might be out for a while.
Talking about those old legs, and you see Spaziani on the sideline concerned about the breakdown in his secondary. Al Jordan gambled on the defensive call. Instead of running with the receiver, thought he could jump up and knock it down, and Doug Flutie had more arm strength than what he gave him credit for.
Somebody's going to have to replenish the oxygen at the Argo bench. Cunningham and Mazzatti have used up the supply and given us some third quarter thrills here. That's Terry Vaughn. Nailed it to 30. Ball came loose, but the whistle's gone. And Calgary gets set to take over. Well, the oxygen tank has been used at the Argo bench, and they got plenty left in the tank, apparently.
Well, we get a perfect look from an end zone camera. Watch as Al Jordan, as we get a freeze right here. He stops running. You have to keep running if you're playing back secondary because there's nobody behind you on the corner. And Paul Mazzotti just waltzes home for 6.
Mazzotti, a veteran receiver who used to catch passes from Danny Barrett, who is now in at quarterback for Calgary. Barrett trying to pull one out for the Stampeders, but look out. Welcome to the game, Danny. Rob Waldrop. And Waldrop with his second sack of the afternoon.
One of the problems that you have had with the Calgary Stampeders over the past couple of weeks is the lack of time for the quarterbacks in the pocket to throw the ball. The quarterbacks have been sacked on a regular basis, 5 sacks last week, the second for Waldrop today.
Well, he was great last week, came into the game with his team trailing 23-2, almost pulled it out. They lost 25-23 to Montreal. 24-year-old Danny Barrett's going down again. Reggie Gibbons. Sack number 7 on the year.
It's no secret when you bring in a backup quarterback that he's coming in for one purpose, and that is to throw the ball. So as a defensive unit, you want to pin back your ears and just come after him. You see Reggie Gibbons, who's had a lot of success over the past 3 weeks rushing from his middle linebacker position. Once again, they dropped the Calgary quarterback.
And Barrett rudely welcomed to this game on his opening series in the fourth quarter. Calgary in danger of letting this one slip away, down by 7, but they get a tremendous kick from Martino. Here goes Cunningham, and he finds an open seam again. Jimmy Cunningham stopped up by Dwayne Ford at the Toronto 54, but Cunningham adding to his totals, 27 yards on that return.
When you talk about changing the complexion of a football game, it's all you have to do is say number 86 blue, Jimmy Cunningham. He has single-handedly taken the Argonauts out of their doldrums and given them great field position along with the touchdown on his punt returns here in the second half.
Well over 200 yards in total all-purpose yardage for Cunningham today. Over 1,900 on the season to lead everybody in the league. And now Flutie trying to dump it off and let that one slip. Falling short of the intended receiver, Robert Drummond.
Probably the smallest in stature of all of the Argonaut players, but he has really been the workhorse for the Argonauts this afternoon. He has done it all. Punt returns, kickoff returns, caught a pass, and now Jimmy Cunningham is trying to catch his breath because he knows he's going to be called on again in this game.
1,944 yards on the season for Cunningham. This is the first meeting of these two teams. They'll meet again Thanksgiving Monday at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. You'll see it on CBC. Flutie in trouble, and he does get it to Drummond. Here's Robert Drummond trying to get outside, forced out of bounds by Darryl Hall. That will be short of a first down, but a nice escape back by Flutie to avoid a big loss.
It was a marvelous effort by Doug Flutie to get that ball away. What was more impressive is that you're going to see Paul Mazzotti peel back and get a block on Alondra Johnson to allow Drummond to pick up some extra yards on the play. And if you recall, he just came off that long touchdown reception. But you have to hustle in all phases of offense, and Paul Mazzotti not only will catch the ball, but he will come back and lay a block on the defender.
3rd and 5, so Flutie goes to the sidelines. Anthony McClanahan and Eddie Davis were putting the heat on Flutie that time. That kick not too deep, and it does bounce out at the 19, so no return for Coleman. Danny Barrett will get set to go back to work, but Jimmy Cunningham is stealing the show.
You're going to look at the Calgary special team coach and the Toronto special teams coach, Daryl Adrellin. And
Chuck McMahon on the other side, and you know which guy's had the better day so far, no doubt about it.
Well, you can't tell it by the pacing right there, but you know, it's such an integral part of a CFL game to have specialty team players that can perform, because it is your starting position when you're on them, and you have to go out and give 110% on every play.
Well, Danny Barrett hoping for better success on his second series. Sacked both times he dropped back to pass. First time out. And he'll hand it off to Kelvin Anderson. Try and slow up that rush a little bit. And Anderson gets a couple off the left side. Well, a gorgeous day at Sky Dome, and one of the best days of attendance for the Toronto Argonauts this year. Over 27,000 on hand.
Took the hat off today and opened this place up.
They were hoping maybe to open up the top half of the building, but I'm sure the folks here are enjoying what they've seen, especially in this third quarter, as they've seen the home side outscore Calgary 16-0 in the second half. And Sapunjas with a catch at the 30-yard line. And that is enough for a first down. So 11:07 to go in the fourth quarter, and Danny Barrett called upon to get Calgary back on even terms.
So this is a combination that Calgary had some success with last week in the second half, Sapunjas and Barrett, and these two worked very well together, and will they continue to go there? We haven't seen Alan Pitt for some time. Vince Danielson has been a no-show today.
Well, Danny Barrett, a former Argo quarterback who's also had some of his best moments against Toronto. Anderson on that first down play, and he was tripped up behind the line of scrimmage. That was Donald Smith moving up from his cornerback position. Well, Jimmy Cunningham has turned the complexion of this game around in the second half. 201 punt return yards. Marvin Coleman on the other side really hasn't had a chance to get untrapped.
And what that translates into is field position. That means that you're working on a very short field with your offense. Even though he took one all the way back, Doug Flutie has had the shorter field to work with.
2nd and 8. Here's Barrett finding Terry Vaughn up near midfield, and Vaughn, the leading receiver for Calgary, hooks up with Barrett for a big gain, and Don Wilson there to make the tackle.
It's very difficult to say that there could be a better receiver after the catch than Terry Vaughn in the CFL. You'll see him on that deep end route. Danny Barrett has such a strong arm. He puts the ball right on the number 2, and once Vaughn makes the reception, that's when he becomes the most dangerous.
The longest possession for Calgary in this second half. The drive 4 plays old. First down at the Argo 50. With some time, passing in the flat in front of the Argo bench, and that is a catch for Travis Moore.
Got a poor spot by the officials, but what Danny Barrett is starting to do now is understanding the pressure from the Argonaut defensive front 7, and he is moving the pocket to buy himself that extra second so that he can spot his receivers downfield.
He was the quarterback for Calgary in the '91 Grey Cup game against Toronto.
And what a gutsy performance in that game. Also, he had to pull quadricep, came back in, kept his team close in that game, and almost pulled out the victory, except for the Rockets' great punt return.
Deepest penetration by Calgary into Argo territory in the second half. 2nd and 1. Let's see if Barrett plays it close to the vest or uses it as a free down. No, he'll just move the sticks. Keep this thing going.
Well, this is a situation where there's really no need to gamble. You have Doug Flutie. You want to take as much time off the clock. So if you do score, that you limit the opportunities that the Argonauts would have. But Danny Barrett has put together a quality drive here for the Calgary Stampeders here in the fourth quarter.
Under 8.5 minutes to go. Garcia is now a spectator on the sidelines. His numbers on the day, and the fact that he just couldn't get it going in the third quarter. So Barrett's on in relief in the fourth.
This is the spot where the Argonauts like to blitz.
Rolls, Dwayne Ford, a former Argo, cuts back, lunging towards the 30, That's close to another Calgary first down. They'll probably spot that at the 31 and make it a 9-yard gain. Don Wilson again there on the tackle defensively for Toronto.
And what Danny Barrett is doing is that he's utilizing his weapons. He's getting everyone involved in offense. Dwayne Ford catching a screen pass. That's something that's not expected by the Argonauts defense.
Barrett 4 for 4, 54 yards as the chess game continues. Ron Meyer has checked in, number 63. He is an extra man on the line.
This is the elephant formation for short yardage.
Anderson will have the first and a couple more to keep it going for Calgary. Well, Danny Barrett is 4th all-time on the Calgary quarterbacking list. Only Doug Flutie, Peter Lisk, and Jerry Keeling ahead of this 12-year CFL veteran who spent some good years in Toronto as well.
Well, he spent a few good years around the CFL. He's a very quality quarterback. If you recall a few years back in BC when he went out and set the single-game passing record against these same Argonauts, I believe it was, where he passed for 622 yards.
A couple of injured players, so we're going to take a timeout here. 6:58 to go, fourth quarter at Skydome. We're back at Skydome. Tim Cofield continues to get attention, and they may be checking his neck. He's had a history of burners throughout his career, and he's being helped out. We'll tell you that following this football game later today from Spruce Meadows, just outside Calgary, the Amoco Cup, Scott Russell, Terry Leibel. Tomorrow, we'll have the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Ottawa Rough Riders, a couple of teams coming off wins. In fact, the Rough Riders 2 in a row, and it should be an interesting ball game tomorrow. David Archer and company, a 1 o'clock Eastern start, as Doug Flutie looks on and hopes the defense can dig in here.
And you have to rank that victory by the Ottawa Rough Riders last week in Saskatchewan as one of the largest victories in franchise history. Even though it was only their 3rd of the season, it was a huge.
So Noah Cantor comes in to replace Cofield. And Danny Barrett has time to throw over the middle, and Sapunjas can't bring it in. That'll be 2nd and 10 for Calgary.
One of the things you have with Danny Barrett when he comes in the game, you have a quarterback with probably the strongest arm in the entire CFL. He throws such a tight spiral, but it has a lot of heat on it, so the receivers have to make that adjustment to the ball getting there just that hair fraction quicker than what it normally would.
It's a big play from the Argo 28. 2nd and 10 with 6:20 to go. Better protection now, throwing in the flat, and no catch. Travis Moore was the intended receiver. Donald Smith in coverage. And Mark McLaughlin will get sent out to kick a field goal for the Stampeders.
Excellent defensive coverage by the Argonauts. They made Barrett hold the ball. He had to check down 3 different receivers to find Moore at the sideline, and he was forced to underthrow. Pretty tough call right there. Looked like he got both hands under it, but the call came up as an incomplete call by the officials. Now they have to settle for a field goal.
Mark McLaughlin has hit 2 today. This attempt from 35 yards. Read the holder, and they say it missed. The officials seem to get crossed up there, and we're going to get an argument. I'd like to have another look at that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that one again, because the official was looking up and over his right shoulder, and then he said he missed to the left shoulder.
Oh, we'll take a look at it when we come back to Skydome. Mark McLaughlin steamed at the Calgary bench. Does he have a case? Let's take another look.
Well, I have to go with McLaughlin on this, because you have the official standing right underneath the goalpost. At least that's where he's supposed to be standing. Watch the drop point of the ball. It's right now, it's at the height. This is where the ball is. It's going to come down inside the goalpost. That's where you keep your eyes on if you're the official. And the ball came down clearly inside the goalpost, and he was supposed to have been looking up at it, and he lost it.
I'm not so sure it is clear, because...
Well, he's looking to the inside of when the ball came across.
But was it between the bars when it went over the...
But you have to make that decision at that point. You can't wait to see where it lands in the end zone.
Absolutely. Because clearly it lands between them once it goes by.
But he hesitated,
uprights.
and you cannot hesitate in this game. This is a game of instant reaction. And if you're the official, you have to make the call. We'll get a look at it one more time. Watch the drop of the ball as it comes inside the goalpost, and the official is looking back over his head. That ball is clearly inside the goalpost. It's like in baseball. If it touches the pole, it's a home run.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just not sure that video is admissible in a court of law.
I was saying it was tampered with.
So it's a 2014 lead for Toronto. How big that call it will be. Clemens with a catch, and that's a big play, and we've got a flag after the fact as Will Johnson was tangled up with Chris Perez.
Well, those two have been going at it all afternoon. If you recall, when Will Johnson went out of the game earlier with the neck injury.
And this one's going against Johnson.
It was Perez who had clotheslined him, and I think Will Johnson back in the game has retaliated.
Now Doug Flutie has gone ahead of Tobin Rote on the single-season Argo list, and he'll likely catch Conrad Holloway before this season is too much older. 25 yards on that last play from Flutie to Clemens. The attack on 15 yards. Will Johnson and Perez have had this thing going for a couple of quarters now. Remember when he was clotheslined earlier in the game, and that's a costly 15 yards against the all-pro Will Johnson.
And the officials will always get the one who retaliates.
There's Flutie, that little option toss that was costly in the first half, and Drummond upended again by Marvin Coleman for a yard or maybe two. Clock becoming a factor, 4:01, a 6-point Argo lead, and Toronto driving against this Calgary defense.
The reason why Kenton Leonard's down on the turf, Pinball Clemens came with a peel-back block and just planted him. He snuck up from the blind side, and just as Robert Drummond showed, Coleman had to turn, and Pinball was right there to put the shoulder right in his chest, because he couldn't get much higher.
Well, Pinball's been a favorite receiver today as well. 19 completions for Doug Flutie, 6 to Clemens, 6 to Mazzotti.
Make that Kellogg that he put the shoulder on, but a great job by Pinball on a peel-back block, and that's what you expect. You have to do all facets of the game. Not only is he an excellent receiver and punt returner, but he can also put a shoulder on a defender when he has to.
Showed that strong arm a little earlier, and he can hit like a truck too.
Put the flipper on him, as we call it.
Gives Flutie a chance to confer at the bench.
Now this could cause some problems in the Calgary secondary. With Leonard coming out, even though you have the extra defensive back dressed, you're used to his stability back there in the secondary, his recognition of plays and players as they're coming into the scheme. Now you have to start making adjustments.
Well, Jimmy Cunningham has a new record. He has surpassed Paul Bennett's Argo record for punt returns in a game, 185 yards. Cunningham with 186, and he's done it in the second half. Flutie looking for Pinball Clemens and overthrowing him. Eddie Davis was there step for step. And back at the line of scrimmage, a flag down.
I get a holding call on the Argonauts. You know, it's been a real battle going at the line of scrimmage all afternoon. You know, when you come in and you talk about offenses, what the quarterbacks are expected to do, but in the trenches is where the game is really played. The guys with their hands in the dirt, and it's been no holds barred this afternoon.
Got a decision here, and the Argos have, or check that the Stampeders have elected to give Flutie another down and push it back 10 yards, trying to get them out of field goal range. Kenton Leonard is getting attention at the Calgary bench. It would have been 3rd and 8 and a 38-yard field goal attempt. Instead, they take the 10-yard penalty, and it's 2nd and 18. Flutie calls his own number, tries to turn the corner, and Alondra Johnson won't let it happen. Now there's an argument that Johnson taking a cheap shot on Flutie at the sidelines, but I don't agree.
No, it's not a cheap shot. I mean, that's a hard play by Alondra Johnson, one of the cleanest and classiest players in the CFL. He went high on the tackle, went up around the shoulders, but it was not a cheap shot. He didn't grab any face mask. And this is a heated battle, and you got to expect that from players. You're going to get a shot on the replay as Flutie on the boot got Vic Stevens pulling out in front. But right there, you see Alondra Johnson maybe got a finger inside the cage, but he didn't grab the face mask. So you got everyone a little heated right now.
Well,
they missed a few today.
That video may be admissible in a court of law.
Well, you said the other one was bad. Now, hey, which side you going to go on?
That was a little more conclusive.
Oh, God. You a lawyer now?
Well, here's the field goal attempt now from 45 yards out. This is a big one for Vanderchat, and he splits the uprights and gives the Argos some breathing room. It's a 9-point lead with 2:50 to go.
And you said how big was that missed field goal attempt? With a 9-point lead, it's gigantic.
Yep. Those 2 points that Mark McLaughlin had taken away could figure in big time now. Alondra Johnson can be hazardous to the health of opposing quarterbacks and anybody else on the sidelines.
So we got one of our own who was probably the quickest one down on the sideline, Fausto. As the pileup came towards him, he ran off.
Danny Barrett, the 9-point deficit to be concerned about here as he delivers a pass to Alan Pitts, who flies over the Argo bench. 19-1, the Argos have outscored Calgary in this second half to lead by 9. Barrett's going to have to air it out.
Well, that comes back to defense as he has to throw to the wide side of the field to find an open pitch. But the Argonauts defense have really taken control here in the second half and limited this Calgary offense to just a single point. So the secondary right now has really done their part for the Argonauts.
Thanks, Baziani, keeping his defense ready. Barrett over the middle, Anderson, and a late hit on Barrett, and it'll be called by the officials after the completion. Rob Waldrop took a shot at Barrett.
Now, in the scheme of things in the CFL, there's still plenty of time left on the clock. Waldrop comes through and takes an unnecessary hit on Danny Barrett after he had thrown and completed the pass, and it's going to cost the Argonauts another 15 yards, and Calgary has the ball down at the 40-yard line. You can see where he'd taken the 2 strides, and the official will call that every time.
We found out last week, still plenty of time left. Ottawa scored 2 touchdowns in 90 seconds at the conclusion of their win over Saskatchewan. There's 2:33 to go. Barrett 6 for 8 for 74 yards. In relief in the 4th quarter and going deep, looking for Terry Vaughn, and he overthrew him by 5 yards. Vaughn got in behind, and Danny just aired it out a little too far.
Also, he's throwing that into coverage. He's throwing that where he has 2 men on 1, and you can't try to force the ball regardless of your arm strength. You have to be patient, even with 2.5 to go. Take the 10 to 15 intermediate routes, keep the ball moving. Now he's forced with the 2nd and 10. Toronto can peel back their ears and come after him. Doug Flutie on the sideline, concerned about his defense. They need to make a stop right here.
Calgary in 3 down range, you would think, faced with 2nd and 10 here. Over the middle, Pitts can't hang on. Well, now you start to think about the broken finger on the right hand, because Alan Pitts usually makes that catch.
He's dropped 2 just like that this afternoon, and that's a very catchable ball when you have a healthy hand. He's wide open coming in the seam over the middle, and Simmons comes up late, but he had already dropped the football.
And he told me prior to the game he knows it's going to hurt every time, but I think I can get through it. And there's the sponge open again, and they've missed him a couple times today.
That's what I talk about, going over the middle. There's a lot of room in there, and you'll find open receivers. They've been doubling on the corners.
Up, Calgary going to try for 3 to get back under a converted touchdown. And we've got a timeout being called by the Argos to let McLaughlin think about it. Or wait.
They were under man. Stewart and Namaco are coming on the field. They did not realize they had made the change, and players had left the field and the Argos were under man.
Didn't have the right personnel out, so they take their time out. As Mark McLaughlin gets set to attempt a 51-yarder.
Actually, they have one extra man on the field right now. They have 13, so they have to get rid of one. They're down to 12. The Argonauts, they have the right number on now. They were 3 short.
McLaughlin wanting to make this clear cut, but this does miss to the right, and no one will argue. And Cunningham's going to run it out. And Jimmy Cunningham nailed at the 19-yard line. That time, didn't want to concede the single point and make it an 8-point game, because then Calgary's within a touchdown and a 2-point convert.
Well, Mark McLaughlin, not only did he miss the field goal, but he came down and he made the tackle, a pretty good hit on Cunningham, hustling down, frustrated because normally that's in his range, but he's missed 2 today, and those are very costly missed field goals as he comes down and makes the hit on Cunningham. And now the Argonauts still have that 9-point cushion with Doug Flutie at the controls.
McLaughlin had only missed 6 all year coming into the game. And I'm sure in the dressing room afterwards, he'll say he only missed 1 today. Here's Clemens with a big hole. And oh, Coleman went high to nail Pinball Clemens. And I bet you're surprised he bounced up like that.
Let me stop chuckling first, but you gotta love hits like this. Is a nasty game, football. I mean, talk about viciousness. We saw a hit last night by Trent Brown, but this is a legitimate hit by Marvin Coleman. He caught the pinball with his head looking the wrong way and just planted him. Bam, what a beautiful shot. I mean, you live for hits like that when you're a defensive back.
Tell you what, no wonder he's got the nickname, because he bounced right up. And according to a few people here are surprised at that, and he gets another carry. Well, I don't know if Pinball wants to experience again, but we're going to listen to that last hit by Marvin Coleman on Michael Clemens.
I tell you, seeing a shot like that reminded me of the World Cup.
Well, when you take a hit like that, you don't want to concede anything to the deep back. He just got up and looked at Coleman and went back to the huddle. Wow. Minute 15 to go, and the Argos trying to chew up the clock and post the win, and it's Clemens again. Rick Knox isn't going to let him go.
You know, when you think about Calgary's situation here, they're going to suffer their 3rd loss in a row, and this hasn't occurred since 1990. This is a team that's really going to have to go back and do some soul searching when they get back home to Calgary after this game. They really haven't performed offensively. Their defense had a chance to keep Calgary under wraps, but they had special team breakdowns, allowing Jimmy Cunningham to take control of this football game.
And the Edmonton Eskimos have crept within a couple of points after their win last night. Calgary has Ottawa back-to-back, then the Argos on Thanksgiving Monday, back at Commonwealth Stadium the following week before they close out against Saskatchewan. Argos have an off week, and then we'll get ready for Winnipeg back at home on October the 5th. Here's Terry Vaughn, and Vaughn broke a couple of tackles out to the 51 with 59 seconds remaining. 14-yard return by Vaughn, and the Stampeders down by 9 with under a minute to play.
When you look at the Calgary offense, this was once a very potent offense early in the season, has gone rather anemic over the past month, and they have to find a way to get on the same page and find a way to get some points on the scoreboard once again, because their defense has been playing too many minutes as of late.
Barrett with 6 receivers works out of the shotgun and looks deep. Looking for Terry Vaughn, and Vaughn got loose in behind Marcelo Simmons. It's a little surprising because you know Barrett's got to wear it out, and He's still got somebody in behind the Argos secondary.
One thing as a defensive coach, you teach your defensive backs when a team is down and they have to go for it late in the game. Do not let anyone get behind you. Terry Vaughn just ran right past Marcelo Simmons. Danny Barrett has the arm to get it there, and it was a perfect strike down to the 17.
42 yards, 51 seconds on the clock, and now you think if they can get in the end zone quick, they might be thinking short kickoff. Barrett looking, end zone, Pitts, touchdown. Oh, did he take a hit, but held on. George Namako with the jolt on Pitts, but he squeezed the ball with 45 seconds to go. Wally Buono looking for 2.
Well, they have to go for 2 to get it down to the 1, but George Namako comes over from his free safety. Started his career with the Argonauts in the backfield as a running back, has been converted to the free safety, and he's a load back there, but Alan Pitts with the concentration makes the great reception, but only 45 seconds to go, and we have a game going.
Well, one of the all-time greats approaching another of the all-time greats. And now for 2. They trail by 3, and Sapunjis has the 2 points. So it's a 1-point game with 45 seconds to go. Yeah, don't go away.
This is the same scenario that Calgary was in last week versus Montreal. Danny Barrett came off of the bench, able to rally the troops to bring them close. Now it's gonna come down to, as you spoke about in the opening, Chris, special teams. Can they make the play right here on special teams to get the ball back to give Danny Barrett one more shot?
2 plays, 59 yards. It took 14 seconds.
And you have Martino and McLaughlin in the game here together, so it's going to be some type of onside kick that they're going to try. You got your hands team. Pitts is coming out. You got all the skilled players, and so this is where the Argonauts will bring in their hands team. You'll see a lot of receivers and defensive backs 10 and 12 yards away from the football looking for the short kick.
You don't usually see 2 kickers go out in this type of situation. Usually you know where it's going and just try and load up one side, but Wally Buono introducing the element of deception here. McLaughlin and Martino both poised near the ball. And it's in the air. Jackie Kellogg going up for it. It's a free ball, and the Argos look like they're on it. It is Toronto football.
I tell you, that was a marvelous effort by Paul Mazzotti to go up and get that ball at its highest point and to bat it back. Normally you want to bat it out of the field of play, but he kept it in the field of play, but great hustle by the Argonauts allowed them to recover the football, but just a tremendous effort by Paul Mazzotti to go up and bat that ball away from the Calgary Stampeders to give his teammates an opportunity, and Donald Smith was hustling in, but Reggie Gibbons, I believe, or Robert Drummond came up with that football.
So 38 seconds to run off for this Toronto win. Barring something unforeseen. Take another look at that short kick.
Well, Invictus, you'll take him any way you can get him, but you'll see Paul Mazzotti. He is the player that goes up and bats that ball away, and then there's a mad scramble, but Robert Drummond will come in late and recover it for the Argonauts.
Flutie puts the knee down with 14 seconds left. 23-22.
You have to wonder if you're the Calgary Stampeders or a fan of the Calgary Stampeders if Danny Barrett had have come into the game at the start of the second half like he did last week. But I'll go back to a point where you argued about a missed field goal, saying that you had questions about it, and Mark McLaughlin has those same questions.
Absolutely. And they'll be questioning that apparent field goal after the game because it was the difference, and the Argos have survived this battle of first place teams, a 23-22 win. Garcia and Flutie embrace, and Doug Flutie has beat his old teammates here at Sky Dome, but they'll do it again on Thanksgiving Monday at McMahon Stadium in Calgary.
And when you speak about the intangible of a Doug Flutie, the level of play all around him has a tendency to rise, and he has created a great atmosphere here in the city of Toronto.
Let's go down to the field and join Scott.
All right, Chris, Argos down by 9 at the half. Then that graphic example of the importance of specialty teams provided by Jimmy Cunningham. Are you beat?
I'm real tired. You know, first I'd like to thank God and the other 11 guys that's on punt return team for helping me score that touchdown and get good returns today.
Tell me about the 95-yarder. I think that was just an example of flat-out blazing speed.
You know, it felt like 150 yards, as tired as I was, but I didn't know it was 95 yards, and I'm thankful for that.
Then you had the next one for 63. Could you have gone the distance on that one if you hadn't had to go 95 in the previous one?
It's hard to say. You know, I had 3 men in red in front of me. I was trying to read my block, but it's hard 2 against 3, so, you know, I was fortunate to get that 63 yards, and I'm happy with that.
Jimmy, thanks for your time. You turned this game around. Let's bring in Doug Flutie now. Doug, bit tightly wound maybe in the first half, better performance in the second half. Is that an accurate assessment of how you played on the day?
I don't know if I'd say that. We made the big plays in the second half. First half, we moved the ball extremely well, but we couldn't finish drives off. We had an interception, we got stopped on a 3rd and 1, all that stuff. We missed a field goal. So there were opportunities there, but we didn't make the big play. Second half, Jimmy kick-started us, and we made some big plays.
In your mind, did this game live up to its hype?
No question about it. People were flying around, hitting. It's a solid defensive ball game the whole way. We got a special teams touchdown, a couple good returns that helped us out. All facets of the game were important.
Let me ask you about the Pierre Verchevel symmetry. A son Samuel born 2 years ago. He was 7 pounds 11 ounces. The Argos were 7'11" at the time. Daughter Claire born last week. She was 10 pounds 2 ounces. The Argos are 10 and 2. Is the key here to pray for Debbie Verchevel to have an 18-pound baby next November?
Whoever's next, Debbie. Let's go, 18 and 2, because that'll count playoffs.
All right, Doug, I thank you for your time. Congratulations on a strong comeback in the second half.
Thanks a lot. Take it easy.
So the Argos win this one here at Skydome. We'll return to conclude the proceedings in just a moment. There's the final here at Skydome as the Argos win it by a single point. We want to remind you, coming up directly from Spruce Meadows, the Amico Cup World-Class Equestrian and the final event of the season. Tonight it's Speedy Blue Jays baseball from Camden Yards in Baltimore. Orioles and Jays begin at 7 ET. Tomorrow afternoon on the CFL on CBC, the Ticats and Rough Riders meet at Frank Clair Stadium in Ottawa. Riders bidding for their 3rd straight win and the Cats their 2nd victory. And here at Skydome, the Argos can claim to be the best team in all the land as they win it. These two teams meet again on Thanksgiving in Calgary, and we'll have that telecast. Thanks for watching this one, and now it's off to Spruce Meadows for the Amico Cup.